Okay, thank you. Welcome to the November, what's the date? November 12th meeting for Park and Rec Commission. We will start as we have been recently with the Pledge of Allegiance. Fred, you can take it away.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First on the agenda, we have commissioner updates. We don't have an audience, so I guess we might at home. So I'll go through the agenda real quick. So we have commissioner updates quickly. We will accept last month's meeting minutes. We have a request for acceptance of donations from the Mighty Oak Fund. We need to continue our discussion on Long Lake Beach. We pretty much wrapped up our discussion and presentation last month, but we were hoping for a full board this month to be able to vote unanimously one way or the other, if that was how the board went. That's what I wanted to try to do. Unfortunately, Sean is out tonight, so we'll have 4, and we'll see how that goes. Then we have a request for the polar plunge for Long Lake Park. I believe Officer Fernandez is coming in, as soon as he comes in, I'd like to bump that up the agenda to help him get home as quick as possible if there's no objection. And then discussion on Cooper Farm property, parcels A and B, and there has been some discussion about trying to switch the designation of those. We have director's report after that. And then we have some news in regard to our personnel in the recreation department. So we'll be discussing the position that has recently opened up. And then we have finally we have a discussion on our 5-year capital plan. And then finally we have some events to discuss, and then new business if there is any. So why don't we, has anybody been to meetings where we need to communicate any commissioner updates? I haven't been to any.
No.
No? Okay.
Okay.
Skip that. Meeting minutes for October 8th. Hi, Jan.
Yeah, that whole packet. It's the stapled packet.
I'll entertain a motion when you guys are done with that.
All right, I'll motion to accept the minutes for October 8th, 2019.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right, great. Request for acceptance of donation from the Mighty Oak Foundation, Mighty Oak Fund.
That was Pablo. He's at our house. I'll be right down.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So we have a request to donate $300 for the Holiday Helpers and $500 for the Youth Scholarship Fund.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, yeah, Bobby just came and said that that was something he really wanted to be able to continue to do. So he asked to put it on the agenda first to get it approved, and then he'll write the checks. It's just easier for him to
Okay.
do that. So I said I would do that for him.
Perfect. I've been on this board, I think this is my 3rd year, and, the donations from the Mighty Oak Fund are plentiful, and we get them quite often, especially around this time of year.
Yep.
So they really are and I know they donate to the youth organizations all around town. They run a really great golf tournament to help with their fundraising and other aspects. So they're, a vital part of our community. We really appreciate Bobby and the Mighty Oak Fund for their continued donations. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept those donations.
Yeah, motion to accept a donation from the Mighty Oak Fund for holiday helpers and the Youth Scholarship Fund.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So we can start the Long Lake Beach discussion. I don't know if it's gonna be long or not. If it does turn into a lengthy discussion, as soon as Officer Fernandez gets here, I'd like to take a break and just have a quick conversation with him. So I know he's got quite a commute, so we can start that discussion. So last month, we discussed the Long Lake Beach this past summer. The expenses, the revenue generated, which is what we just approved that in our meeting packet, our meeting minutes from last month. So Fred, you were the only one not here that is here tonight. Did you have a chance to?
Yeah, I
look
looked
at the
this
presentation?
over and I
All
watched
right.
the meeting, so.
Perfect, excellent. So, just to rehash quickly, and Tim, if I get anything wrong, please correct me.
Yep.
We had total revenue of $108,000. We had a payroll of almost $84,000, expenses of almost $21,000. So all in all, we brought in $108,000. With those expenses, we had a net profit of $3,763.59. We went over, if you're interested in how we generated that revenue, I would just encourage you to take a look at our last meeting. Tim went into depth as far as all the itemized ways we generate revenue. He went into depth in all our expenses, and we then reviewed some of the rates that we established going into last year. We had a couple new rates. We had a single resident, meaning one person in your household. We introduced that. We introduced a couple. I think we lowered the senior rate. So we did some different things with the passes that we had heard some feedback from the community for, so we implemented those going into this year. They seem to have worked really well. Yeah, I don't know if the rest of the commission has any questions.
Did you read, it's the first I've looked at Jan's.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask Jan if she wanted to speak, but I wanted to get input from the commissioners first. If you guys have any additional questions, Fred, I don't know if you have any.
One concern I have about increasing the rate is, for out of town residents, and,
So,
yep, you don't want to have a discussion on that?
no one's proposed that.
Well,
We're not talking about that yet.
right, but even at a 125, I don't know if everyone's aware, but you can get a pass to Westford to their beach for $75 for a
Plus
family.
$5 every time per person.
I didn't see that. $5?
Trust me.
Yep.
We went through this round and round last year, and
Yeah.
we had a lady who stood before us, and I told her, well, you're doing it incorrectly, and showed
When I
it
looked,
to
when
her
I
on
looked
the
it up,
screen.
because I looked it up, I didn't see that $5 extra.
I'll show you, Mike.
Yeah, I trust you. I trust you.
It's subtle, Mike.
What's that?
It's a subtle $5.
If you're out of town, you have to pay the 75 and $5 every
Every
time.
So
time
just,
you go.
just
Just
Yeah.
see.
in regards to the presentation that was given last week,
Yeah.
I think I know Jan emailed us, and I'm gonna allow, I hope she's willing to speak, and,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to talk about what Tim presented last week. If we have any follow-up questions in that regard, we can ask those. But let me put a hold on this conversation. So, did you go to the town hall?
I did, yes. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, it's
We were right in your home base.
Almost missed it.
There was all this activity going on, and then I was like,
All right, so we'll halt this discussion so we can get you up, if you want to come up here, and you
Yeah, sure.
can let us know what you guys have planned, polar plunge.
okay.
I know you got a long ride, so we'll get you.
No, I'm working tonight. So it's
Oh,
not
really?
big
All right,
deal.
go back, sit back down.
Yeah, I'll wait a little bit. I got 4 other things, so.
All right, so give it to us.
All right, so we're, the Littleton Police Department, in conjunction with the Special Olympics, is looking to hold another polar plunge. We've been doing this annually, I think about 8 or 9 years. We are asking for a waiver on the application fee for the charitable event that it is. We're looking to submit the application for the 4th day of April of 2020. And my understanding is that the hours that we're hoping to use the Long Lake, which is where the event is held, is between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. Now, the event doesn't run that long, but I think Megan O'Neill, who's the contact name and coordinator for the event, is looking to have some setup time and some breakdown time as well. But yeah, that's I believe why I'm here today.
Okay, excellent. So typically the thing we ask with these events is regarding porta potties, and you guys can probably know how they've done it in the past.
Everything they did last year worked perfectly
Okay,
fine.
so,
Yeah, and I don't anticipate any differences. RADA donates a handicap and a regular porta potty for us.
great.
I think we had a little bit of issue where we put it, but I can just work with you as the best spot that you guys think. I think we put it on a handicap spot, or was that a different event? I could
No,
be
that's what it was. We didn't have an issue on our end. It was just, there was a resident who was concerned with the
Concerned
placement
about
of it.
Okay.
So,
All right, yeah, I got no further questions. Anyone else?
It's a great event.
Yeah.
I've always thought about doing it, but chicken out every year.
I've never thought about doing it, but I appreciate the event that you guys hold.
I thought about doing it the first year I was SRO, and I got roped in every year after that.
There you go.
Thank you, guys. So, should we submit this when we need to, or how does that work?
you
You
can
can
hand it
just
over right
now,
now.
yeah.
and we'll Go. Are you, so just a couple things so I can put them on my radar. Are you guys gonna need the fire pits and stuff again? Did that work out for you all last year?
It did. It was nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Was it too much of an issue?
I just wanna make sure that I have all these things on my calendar so I can make sure
Fire
that
pit would be great.
they're there. So yeah, we'll be there. We'll unlock everything that you need. We'll get the fire pits. Was there anything else on our end? Oh,
No, I don't think so. Trash was a take-in, take-out.
have Megan reach out to me because there's some events that we have coming up that if she wants to set up a tent with you and the PD and, you know, do some advertising and stuff. We did that last year at a couple things.
Yes,
So
and
just
she
let me
will.
know.
They're very active with that, so
Yeah.
I'll have her reach out. I'll set myself a note to do that.
Awesome.
So, awesome. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Great.
everyone.
All right.
Appreciate it.
So just to officially take the vote.
I'll make a motion to waive the fees for Long Lake Polar Plunge on April 4th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, thanks. Okay, so moving back into the Long Lake discussion for last year. So, any questions on the presentation from last month? All right, so I know we did, Jan emailed us with some thoughts of her own. So, Jan, if you want to
Sure.
present from there, you can come up if you'd like.
Oh,
It's
do
up
I
to you.
have to, or can
I think if you
say-
stay there, you just need to make sure you speak up so the audience, if we have people watching on
Okay.
tape,
Is this loud enough?
I hope so.
Yep.
Okay,
You're good.
all right. So I was not able to be here last meeting, but I did look at Tim's PowerPoint, and I watched the meeting. And awesome, you know, that you guys made a profit. The one,
Small profit,
small profit, you know, you're not in the red, so that's a good thing.
yes.
One of the things I noticed, though, was that even though the revenue was high, I'm looking at the Long Lake passes, buying the membership for the season. And so the revenue was up from $33,499 to $37,757. But the actual number of memberships was down, and somewhat significantly, 72 fewer residents than the prior year, according to your numbers.
So just to be accurate in the statements, we offered the individual membership, the couple membership, and the lowered senior membership. So you saw, where you see increases in all those numbers was a lot of the numbers, because last year we forced everybody to buy a family pass.
I just added them all up together to see how many residents purchased memberships, and it looked like 400 when you added them all together. I don't have the individual numbers with me,
Okay.
but I was just comparing total memberships last year, total memberships this year. And they were of different types, as you noted. So that just got me thinking, you know, because I know that you're very community-oriented and very much care about having maximum participation where possible in your programs from the town residents. So it made me kind of wonder if the family rate for residents was a little bit lower and some of the non-resident rates a tad bit higher, how would that pan out in terms of revenue? So this was just something I did, real quick last night to see, okay, if we lowered this and raised that, could we make it revenue neutral, but a little bit of more of a break to town folk. And I know with last year, there being a little bit of a kerfuffle around how much the family rate was, I thought that might make people happy and still come out with about the same amount of revenue. So that's basically, and, full disclosure, I'm a senior, so I didn't suggest any change in the senior rate. I think, I don't want to say it should go up, go down, I'm a little biased on that. So I left that alone, and I was just really looking at the family rate because I know that that's where a lot of people had concerns last year about it going up. So that's all. I just maybe look at it a little bit differently to see if we could get the numbers back up for resident participation, because it looked like it was down about 72 memberships.
We were missing, so there was some information that was missing from this, and I thought it was going to be put in, was the individual membership for the 2019 season.
Yeah, so that was, the hope was that when we got whatever the data that rec desk was able to send us over, it was going to be much, easy to extract. It was not that.
Okay.
So it's unfortunate that, we don't have access to that data anymore, but now with our new system, obviously, you see the data that we have. The other piece to
I'm not being rude, by the way. I'm going to your email so I can look at the presentation.
That's fine. The other piece of the numbers, just so everybody's clear on this, and why you see the decrease that you are referring to in some of the family stuff, Jan, is at the request of one of the residents, we put in the clause that, the household clause. So there were, prior year, there were people who were forced to buy multiple passes versus that family clause of 2 adults and anybody under the age of 25 and that. So we did have a decline in the households because now that we had this, basically, if anybody says they lived in a household, they were allowed to fall under one family pass.
Are you sure about, pardon me for interrupting, but I did buy a family pass the prior year, and nobody asked me, like, are any of do you have adult children living with you, or, I just got 4 memberships. I don't know if that was just the person who sold it to me, didn't inquire, but I didn't have that rule enforced upon me.
last year-
Not this summer, the previous summer, 18.
Right, so going into this summer, before this
This summer,
summer,
yes.
it was based on feedback we received.
Right.
We brought in any child under the age of, no, it was anyone living in the house,
Right.
living in the household
Right.
was part of the family pass.
Right, which I support.
So I think Tim's point is that, previous to that, if you had a family of, 4, or if you had a child over 26 or whatever,
They had, right.
they had to go and then buy an individual pass.
And what I'm inquiring about is, A, are you sure that's what the rule was in 18? And B, because you defined it, because when you defined the family last year, it was a change, if I recall correctly.
Right.
Okay, last year it was a change. So if it was a change that you were defining the family, that makes me think that in the prior year, it was not defined. And I know from my personal experience, and granted, you've got all different people selling passes. I know for a fact that I was not asked about that, because I did have adult children, and I do have adult child at home.
Did you buy a family pass or a senior pass, if you don't
The
mind?
prior year, I got 4, yes, I got a family of 4.
So you're probably one of the reasons why we
No.
declined. The numbers
So-
declined.
So you're
So-
talking 2018?
No, I'm saying in
is when that-
18,
Right.
I do not
So that
think
was,
that was.
I believe, prior to last year our policy was, anyone in the house, any child in the house over 26,
Whoops.
Under 25.
under 25 was part of the family unit. If you were over 25, we asked you to buy an individual pass for that particular individual. Whether or not it was enforced, that's one of the things we depend on the community to come in and tell us. If you came in and asked for a family, if you came in and asked for a family pass and said I have 4 people, I would assume they were just giving it to you, and
So at that point, yeah.
I don't think it was I certainly
maybe it wasn't
never heard that.
maybe it wasn't public knowledge.
Because
Yeah.
I think I'm one of the people who raised the issue last year about having other people in your family, elders, whomever. And so had I thought that was the rule the previous year, I certainly would have brought it up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's only common sense. You know what? Irrespective of that, whether the numbers went up or the numbers went down, 30, 40, 70, none, there's another point I was just trying to make, which is that there was kind of a kerfuffle last year about the rate, and could we kind of make people happy if the resident rate was a little bit lower and the out-of-town rate was a little higher? So irrespective of whether that number is up or down, we don't have we don't have comparative data
Yeah.
to
With
inform that.
the sheet that you sent over, just so everybody realizes, it's an $870 difference in revenue generation. The other piece to this is that from feedback that we received, especially from non-resident users of the beach, 125 is really our threshold right now. So by going to plus 125, whatever that number might be, I can tell you that we're not going to clear the numbers that we expect to clear, and that plus $870 worth of revenue, we will be back in the red.
Well,
Projected.
yeah, you can't tell us that. That's a
Right,
projection.
you're-
I'm saying,
We're-
based on our
Right,
projections,
based on the data.
I can tell you that if you ran the same exact projections through that way, then based off of the feedback we received, we would most likely be back in the red.
Yeah, so if you raise it
I guess so.
$25 from the 125 to 150, you may lose 20 families.
But you may gain at $50 a family, 20 resident families.
But we would lose a lot of money.
You'd be.
I didn't do the math in my head
Yeah,
just
but
now,
no,
I
that's-
confess. But I'm
I mean-
just saying that you have, I think, a bunch of people who didn't get passes this past year because they were mad.
Yeah?
I wasn't one of them. I would have gotten it anyway, because I live near the lake and I wanted to support it.
I would
Um,
venture to guess if they were mad that I don't necessarily think $10 is going to change that.
All right, well,
Maybe it would,
you know,
maybe it wouldn't.
Do whatever, that's my idea.
Yep.
I don't think you have a crystal ball, so I don't think you really know. And
I agree.
sometimes you hear feedback from a couple of people. I get this all the time at work because I do a lot with data analysis, and people will tell a lot of anecdotes, and then we'll go look at the numbers, and yeah, that happened for 2 or 3 out of 100 people. So I don't think you really know.
Yeah.
But you don't want to take a chance, you don't want to take a chance. Might be worth trying it and seeing, but it's not gonna make or break
Yeah.
anything.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to crunch these numbers, send them over to us with your proposal, and being here tonight. Thanks. Eileen?
I had a question around some of the numbers when it came to the Long Lake. Eileen Wiedegartner, Maple Hurst Road,
Thank you.
sorry.
Oh, sorry,
I had a question around some of the revenue and whatnot, because I sat down, was able to look at it, around the annual passes and the earnings from it. First, I do want to interject and say I'm going to concur with Jan and say that the year before, the changes in the passes this year was a change, because the year before I had gone down to the Park and Rec to specifically ask if I had to get my family pass and then add my mother, and I was told no, if we were under one household, we bought one for the whole household, and there is a difference of 72 passes. That's just factually there, it's on the paper. So you add them up, you have a total resident, family, individual, couple, seniors at 400. And for the year before, you have 72. My question comes in, there were a few things that I was looking at when, just looking at the revenue from the resident and the non-resident passes. It seems like the revenue from resident passes should be $15,480 and the revenue from the non-resident passes should be $17,625, which would be a total revenue of $33,105.
I got the same
Just if you
numbers,
do some of those numbers, a lot of these numbers don't mesh, and I don't know why. Maybe I don't know why. Like, even when it comes to the third parking sticker, how do you have 6 at $20?
Because they cost $20 a parking sticker.
So you sold 6, but you only had a revenue of $20. So if you sold 6, wouldn't you have a revenue of 120?
Because our system takes into consideration and factors in refunds. So people who had bought individual daily passes and day passes that got the credit if they used it at check-in, the way the system works is if you have a credit, it then deducts that out of whatever it was applied to.
Okay, so some of the numbers don't seem to be matching, and I can't.
So that would apply to that might be the discrepancy that she's seeing as well, right? Because if you buy 2 day passes and then decide to buy a season pass, you get credited
Correct.
that
And
amount
it's
towards your
revenue
family
neutral in
season
our
pass.
system, yes.
Right, but right there, I'm just looking at the seasonal passes, I'm not looking at the daily rates.
Regardless of what it is, the problem is, what I'm trying to say is our daily passes are sold through our point of sale system, which is a completely separate thing. You won't see the revenue generated. That revenue generation actually shows up in the Snack Shack revenue that's on, part of this page. If you reference the very first page under concessions, the daily parking and the daily revenue, because it's run through the POS, that's where that money goes, and we can break it out in an actual report when we run that. But then if you were to come back with your receipts, or I were to search for you in the system that you purchased X, whatever I credit that monies to, it doesn't come back out of the POS system, it comes out of the revenue line from where it is, so everything balances out to zero.
Wouldn't that mean that it would then show up in the category where it got transferred to? So in other words, it was a day pass, X number of times, family decided we might as well put this towards a family pass. So it's subtracted from the day pass revenue. Wouldn't it then get added to the family pass revenue?
No, because it goes back into our system as a credit that has no value whatsoever, and then it's already money that's in there. So when you
Right.
go in, you're paying with just a household credit. I don't know, Alicia, can you explain this better than I can?
So when you're doing the transfer of money, you get a refund. There's no program, there's no anything that's associated with it. It's literally like, I'm going to give you, Jan, a virtual $25 back. It's going to be floated on your credit, right? So then you can use that $25 to whatever you want, and then it will be associated with the program once you use that moving forward.
So so that makes sense. That's kind of what I'm saying in a different way, that I came up with the same numbers Eileen came up with in terms of this many family passes times the rate equals, Y. So I came up with those same numbers, and it seemed, from my point of view, for my purposes of what I was proposing, I noticed that the numbers were different, but I didn't really worry about it or take it apart. I wondered why, but I don't know if that's why the numbers are different.
And
Because
our system is relatively new, so there definitely are some bugs in the system that we're
Yeah.
trying to work out.
Yeah.
So it could be as simple, and that's something that I can go back and talk to my rec about, is it actually assigning that credit to the programs where it should be? So that's something I'm not
Well,
sure
the question is it assigning
entirely.
the income back to the family pass? So if you took away the revenue from the day pass, because the person has taken back that money and putting it towards a family pass, it should show up in the family pass bucket then, because they're now purchasing a family pass.
But that's what I'm saying. Yes, you would assume that that
You
would
don't
happen,
think it
but
does, though.
I don't know. I will have to
All right.
communicate with our software company and see and make sure that that's the
But I
case.
think, I mean, that could be why we have different numbers, but I came up with the same numbers Eileen mentioned, and
Yeah, I think,
we didn't talk at the
Yeah,
time.
no,
No.
because when you look at the
If-
day passes, the numbers work out for the residents, and the numbers work out for the non-residents up to where the non-resident one-day parking is. That number doesn't work out. If you divide that out, because then it's just over $20. There's something off there. Also, when you look at the 2019 totals, if you had 335 residents, that would have been 13,400, and 142 non-residents would have been 14,200. And then the senior one, I just took a $25. I didn't know quite what the cost that was for that. And that would have been an additional, I forget what it is.
The senior pass,
It's
I
off by
mean?
like $5,225.
Are you talking about the senior pass?
I'm talking about the 2018 totals, like
Oh,
they
2018,
they don't
okay.
work
All
out
right, got
either.
it.
None of those numbers work.
Well, there's information that's missing, at least from what I have in my copy.
Like those numbers just don't pan out.
Like, what are you missing?
I don't
I
see,
think he's talking about the 2018 numbers from the
yeah,
previous.
I mean, the individual membership is missing there.
So other than this bug in our system, is there anything, I mean, I think they're right, the numbers don't pan out, but, I mean, it's, you know, are the numbers right from your perspective?
I'm looking at the real numbers right now, and I know they're 100% right.
But,
So-
so I guess, it is confusing, and
I
it's,
believe you.
and it's,
So,
you know, I think I think it opens the door
so
for
hang on.
criticism if our numbers, if they don't add up in what we're presenting to the community.
That's fine, but as far as these numbers, if you really do a deep dive into our thing, it's the percent, so we have, you're taking things for straight value and you're multiplying numbers of what it is and what the pass should cost. We waive fees for scholarships, we give out about 20 beach passes for all the special events that we do. We have different instances where we do special pricing for families in need. So all of these things go into factor
Okay?
that,
That's
that
important.
tweak some of this, and when you're just doing, 400 times this, it's not always gonna come out that way.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
For your future presentations, because this happens to me at work a lot. I usually end up putting a little footnote at the bottom just to say, exclude scholarships or
Yeah,
something
we
to
should,
explain
we
it.
should be
And
tracking that, just so, like, these numbers, so the numbers add up.
So
I
we
usually
do
do
track
because
those
I forget what I
numbers.
did, so I want to write myself a little note.
I mean, you say you have it there and it adds up, and can we update this? I thought we had
You're
talked
not gonna
about
have, the yellow's not gonna ever match, because we don't own that data anymore. There's no way I can get you
Yeah, I'm not,
those exact numbers.
I'm not concerned about that. We went over that last year, and, you have the main number, which is total revenue versus, I think we were $4,000 up this year, from last year.
Mhm.
I guess just my main concern is that we have transparency when we throw these numbers out to the community to, we're basing our decision based on this data. I believe you that in your system, when you do a deep dive, that these numbers are gonna add up, so I have no real concern there. I don't think we're making decisions on faulty data. I think that when questions arise from the community, that we should be able to provide the explanation as to, why there's some discrepancy in what we're presenting and what, simple math adds up to be. So I think, we'll take that criticism, and in the future, let's make sure we have, any scholarships that we offer, any free passes that we're giving out for whatever reason. Let's try to get a column or a row in our spreadsheet for that to account for it. And, I think that would make things add up.
just having been through, like, this is like the fourth software system that I've sat through on these, and typically what they do is you're getting a counter for the number of whatever it is, and the total revenue should really reflect net revenue. And then you would have it, then you'd have no expectation that you can just multiply the number of
Right.
passes by whatever. And it's typical, not that I'd want to see it here, because it would be horrible, but you would break down, like an accounting thing would say, resident day pass, and then you'd have, it'd say 235, and you'd have scholarships or credited back, and then that would account for why it's off. But it's just, the total revenue label is what I think is probably most misleading, because none of these systems, from what I've seen, and it was an issue when we were trying to search for them before, was it's giving you a count because the recreation department wants to say, look how many people we've run through the system.
Right.
And they don't care about that it matches the, and then we want to see what the revenue or your cost is, and there's no reason to be necessarily trying to balance it. And that's really what this is, because I've seen it for 20 years.
Jen?
Just in regards to the suggestion, which I think was a suggestion, not a criticism, it speaks well to, I think, the town that we're able to offer people scholarships and free passes for whatever reason. So I think beyond just even making the numbers a little clearer, it's something that we, the citizens of the town, should know that we're doing this good thing. Like Park and Rec is doing this good thing on behalf of our community.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
it's really not a criticism, it's really more to show off, some of the good works.
Okay, thanks. Eileen, do you have anything else?
Just when it came, so the total revenue this year was $83,902.10. And I just went through some of the areas and compared it to last year's data from the town report. With, I took out the people who worked at the lake from there, and just, so in the snack shack, I thought it was odd, just looking at some of that, for last summer, it was $8,107.48, and this year it's $14,981 for the snack shack, and I just wasn't quite sure why there was such a huge jump there.
We gave everybody almost a $2 to $3 pay increase this summer.
Okay,
Yeah, didn't we vote last year
Yes.
on increasing all?
We are
all-
working on our way to get to the $15 minimum wage,
Yeah.
and we have to get there by 2023, I think. So we're gonna have to go through another iteration of updating that, the scale coming up soon. So, yes.
Yeah, so that would account for probably jumps in all salary categories, because didn't we do
Correct.
like a slight adjustment for all employees?
Absolutely.
Correct.
And
So
that's
there's gonna
something
be-
where, we're trying to be ahead of the curve in that
Yeah.
aspect, because we don't want to have it be forced on us and then have to jump to $15 an hour from, we were, I think, at $11 an hour. That would be just not even possible for us to do that. So we're doing it in a slow iteration.
there were also gaps in data around, like, and I just had to go to the town report for this, as I said, the lifeguard 2 WSI, those are all the swim instructors, right? So for FY '18, they cost $13,258, or for the year '18. For '19, they were $6,678, and I just found that interesting, because why is that? It seems like there were more kids who took swimming lessons, and I know you had the pay raise, and I know you were training more people, so like, I didn't quite understand why the revenue from the lifeguards was down this year, when it seemed like more kids were served.
There were
No, we
fewer
lost
weeks.
money in swim lessons this year. We were down.
You were down?
Yeah.
We
Okay.
were $1,808 less over last year. We've steadily seen a decline in our swim lessons at Long Lake Beach.
Did I understand correctly when I was looking at the presentation? It looked like last year there were 7 weeks and this year there were 6 weeks.
That is also accurate, yes.
Okay, so
We'll be back
that,
in the same situation next year. We'll
So-
be plus a week.
was that your plan to be at 6, or you just did that because of enrollment?
Enrollment, this particular year, our WSIs weren't able to be trained until that first week or the last week in June, based off of school schedules and our instructors' availability. And then we also did a lot of staff cutting when certain lessons didn't come in.
Because I looked at the per week cost, which was 2,306 in 2018 and 2,390 in 2019, which isn't that big of a difference per week. You just had one less week this
Yep.
year, so that's, would make sense that your overall revenue was,
So a big thing that we're seeing, especially with the addition of Goldfish and Westford, is that a lot of students not only are doing swimming there and staying enrolled year-round because they have the same instructor and they're doing it, rather than switching to come to the lake, which is, from an aquatic standpoint, is not necessarily the best environment for kids to learn how to swim. It's chilly, there's wind, there's all sorts of environmental factors.
chilly. It's the warmest place to swim ever.
But the other piece to it is, competitively, we don't have anywhere near the program that some of the other places are offering.
Right.
This particular year, across the board, we saw this in all of our camps as well. It seemed to be kind of a wonky year that a lot of people either took extended vacations or multiple vacations. So we did see a lot of kind of switching, if you will, where families were doing things that they would or wouldn't necessarily do.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So, I'd like to vote on our policies and our rates. I think this past year, I thought, based on the new passes that we came up with for couple, for individual, reducing the senior rates, allowing everyone in the household, if it was a change, if it wasn't, regardless. My recollection is that it was, but perhaps that's wrong. But I think incorporating everyone that lives in a house into one family, and based on what we saw for revenue and expenses coming up $3,000–4,000 within that number, my feeling is that we stay the course for another year, revisit it next year, see where we're at, and if we need to make changes then. I think the reality is this, my feeling personally is that this should be a year-to-year analysis and figure out if our beach rates are adequate to keep the beach self-funded. We've clearly heard from the community that this isn't a piece of property in town that we want to generate revenue from. I think we, perhaps 3-4 years ago, that may have been the philosophy, but I think my feeling is that I've heard from enough residents that that can't be the case. However, my feeling is that it should absolutely be funded by the people who use it. That's me personally. We voted unanimously last year that was the way we want to go as a commission. So that is the way I still feel. But I'd like to hear from all you guys and figure out, if you guys want to go in a different direction, then we can certainly discuss it. But for the time being, I'm of the mindset that we keep things as they are. So I'll open up to you guys.
I agree. I think we get another set of data for next year. We take a good hard look at it. If there's any really big anomalies one way or the other, then we can at least say we have 2 years at the same rates with no changes. We can try to see what, filters out, and if we need to make changes in 21, then we make changes in 21.
Mike, Fred?
Well, listening to Tim, he seems pretty confident that, at least raising numbers on the residents, that'll take a hit.
On the non-residents.
On the non-residents, right. And, based on the information now, $5 a pop, you know, let's say, just using Westford as a data point, I can see where that adds up pretty quickly, but I still think 125, you know, I'll take Tim's guidance on that one.
What do you think we should do? You think we should go down?
No, I
Or you
mean,
think we
Jen,
should go up?
yep, about going up, but your thought process was that, based on feedback you got, that would price us out, right?
I genuinely believe it.
Yep.
I heard that from multiple people when they bought their passes last year, that
How many,
it was
how much did it go up again? It went up significantly, I'm trying, wasn't it like,
$50.
was it that much? Yeah,
And these are closer to the rates that they were years prior.
yeah,
Yep.
so.
Where do our non-residents come from?
Hold on, Eileen.
Do you-
Eileen,
I'm sorry.
we're gonna continue down.
I was
Fred.
just gonna say that I understand Tim's point of view, and I certainly agree with it, or with the research that they've done. There's too many, I mean, we were at $120 quite a while ago, back before they cleaned the lake up, and now we're sort of, you know, we're 125. But there's many more options now. There's too many other places for people to go, too many other things for people to do, and if we price them out, we really don't have any way of recouping, as much as Jan says people were angry and didn't sign up and buy passes. We have a very limited pool in town. There's only so many people that are gonna use the beach and buy a pass, so if we price out the non-residents, then we're gonna have trouble meeting our budget.
Okay.
So the only other piece, Alicia and I were just kicking this around about 3 o'clock when we were reviewing some of this data, is for the seniors, for everyone else, we have the option that gives them an individual and a couple rate. The seniors are still forced into you have one option and that's it. So the reality of the situation is, if we wanted to, it would increase a little bit for the seniors, but if we wanted to offer a $10 individual, $20 couple, and we wanted to do a $15 non-resident, $25, I'm sorry, $15, yeah, $15 non-resident individual, $25?
No.
10 for a resident, 20, a resident individual senior would be 10. A resident couple
would be
senior would be
20.
20. And a non-resident would be 15 and 25.
30.
30. Thank you.
Non-resident would be what? 'Cause I
All right,
have
so let me
numbers
read that
here.
through. Okay, so a senior couple.
Yep.
A resident would be 20, and a non-resident would be 30. That's for a couple rate, for 2 people, couple. So it's essentially the same price that it would be for an individual, but times 2. For a senior individual would be $10 for a resident and $15 for a non-resident.
Just because right now we force everybody to buy a couple passes.
So it'll allow seniors who are by themselves to save
Yeah.
$5
Yeah, but that's less than what we're proposing now. What we're proposing now is 15 per resident. and-
per, no, that's per couple. Per
That's
senior-
for a couple, it's for
senior.
everybody.
For
They
senior
don't get the
couple.
option.
They don't have an option. That's what we were kind of looking at.
Right, but I'm saying right now, what we're proposing for 2020 is for a senior resident, $15, non-resident, 25. That's, right?
Yes,
Okay.
for a individual or a couple. So by breaking that out and just saying, we're gonna lower an individual rate, but then obviously, if it's a couple, we should just double that number. The couples are gonna spend a little more, because they're a couple, whereas the individual saves money.
I mean, do you think the revenue realized would be,
I'm not worried about revenue realized, I'm worried about being fair. Like,
Yeah.
if you're an individual senior and you're already strapped for, you know, on a budget that is a fixed income, what's the fairness in, and that was why we had done all this, was to make everything fair. That's why we offered the
Right.
individual rate, that's why we offered the couple rate. So that was the only group in all of this that we kind of had an oversight in that. And I'm just throwing it out there because this is our opportunity to rectify that.
So what'd you say again for a couple, senior couple? Sorry.
So a resident senior couple would be 20.
Write this down, because we might need it for the motion.
I have it in here.
It's already in the list.
said.
A non-resident senior couple would be 30. Individual would be 10 and 15.
Got it.
I mean, for couples, why would a person do a couple? It's just doubling the price, right?
Because some people don't,
I mean, I guess you don't
Have
have to, you
someone
can do
with
two
them.
individuals.
Yeah, I mean,
But it gives the individual an opportunity to buy an
Right,
individual
I-
pass.
yeah.
yeah.
It's
You see
really,
what I'm
it's a cost savings for those seniors who are alone. Or buying passes just for
A
themselves.
single pass, yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
maybe, actually, shouldn't
That's
even
it.
say they're alone, maybe their husband or wife doesn't want to go to the beach at all.
True,
Correct.
yeah. Yep.
Yes, Jan?
I think that makes sense.
yeah, but
What's the consternation, Mike?
well, it's just, I mean, that was one of our largest groups, if you look at it, you know, it was larger than couples. So you're actually taking $10 off non-residents and $5 off residents. And you're telling me you're concerned about the numbers, but if I take a look at it, I mean, outside of family, seniors used it the most.
It's
I mean,
$2,700.
So if we're
Yeah.
we're really
Okay.
talking about, how many seniors bought passes?
You're right, it's 2,700.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
$2,700.
It was
total.
148 total registrations. It was 91 residents and 57 non-residents, of which I do not know if they were individuals or couples because we forced everyone to buy.
Right, so we're gonna,
It's gonna be around the
yeah,
same.
so we'll,
Yeah, no, I
we'll,
got
we'll
it.
pretend, so anyone who still stays with a couple, we're gonna make an extra $5 off them, right?
Yeah.
And if people were just enabling someone to buy it by themselves, to save themselves $5.
Mhm.
So I don't think we're gonna
It's
lose,
just
I
doing
don't,
the right
I'm not worried
thing.
about the,
Yep.
I'm not worried about the numbers
No,
at
no.
all as far as.
Yep.
Regardless if
I
we
think it-
win or lose, it's
I think it
doing
makes
the right
sense.
thing. It's giving somebody who truly is an individual the opportunity to just not have to. It's the same thing we did for everybody else last year.
Yep.
And it was an
Okay.
oversight that we had.
Okay.
What if we kept the senior couple at 15 and just enabled them to get a $10 individual pass? But kept it at 15 and 30 for non-residents?
That's I'm good with, whatever you decide to
Does
do
that make
here, I'm
sense?
good with it.
That's
your
Because then we're not raising the prices on
Yeah.
senior couples.
What?
Yeah. So senior,
But
resident
enabling,
individual.
you know, it's just another cost savings that someone could potentially get out of it.
It's just, like I said, it's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we said the cost at, it just gives the option and.
That would be my preference. Keep it at
Yeah.
15 and 30 for non-residents, and then 10 and 15 for residents, seniors.
For a couple it'd be 15, that's what you're saying?
Yeah,
instead
so
of
keep
20?
the couple price, just basically for in-town, put in a $10 individual for seniors,
Mhm.
and non-residents,
Mhm.
15 and 30.
Okay, yep.
So 10 and 15, right?
Mhm.
Yes, correct. For resident versus non-resident individuals is 10 and 15.
Jan?
Mike, you made a compelling argument previously. Let's leave it alone for a year and see what it looks like next year. And that was one of the arguments for, I know you have the idea that you think that a higher out-of-town rate would price people out, but I think that that was a good suggestion to leave it alone for a year. And so I think you should leave it alone for the seniors as well. Because that was the whole premise of, or that was half the premise of keeping everything else the same.
Mhm.
So why are you gonna change this one thing? Why don't you leave it alone?
I think it's a benefit to the seniors in town to be able to buy a pass on their
But you're
own.
making a value judgment about, not that I don't think that's a benefit, okay? But you're making a value judgment about what's important enough to make a change,
Mhm.
okay? We were making a value judgment about what was important enough to change, bringing down the price for families. And you guys said no, and I respect that,
Yeah.
it's your job, and it's based on, a particular rationale. But if you're gonna say, let's keep it the same for another year and see what it looks like, then I think you should keep it the same across the
I
board.
would agree. I would agree.
I mean, I would agree to some extent, but I think it's correct, and I think Tim said it's sort of an oversight from when we adjusted the prices last year, where we offered an individual rate and a couple rate as an additional sort of like savings to people. So in my eyes, it's correcting an oversight on our part to give seniors an option for an individual rate, so there can be a little bit of cost savings. I do agree, like, I agreed with Mike that we should sort of keep it status quo to see what we can, pull from the data to take another closer look. But I don't think this is gonna skew the data all that much, that it's gonna be that much of a difference in terms of, the bottom line of what the lake brings in.
And I would add that I think putting in a change of policy that allows seniors to save $5 here or there is a lot different than taking $10 off a family pass, who are the vast majority of the people who buy our passes. That would be a much larger, potentially much larger amount of money that we would be losing. And likewise, if we increase the non-resident passes and price them out, potentially a much larger sum of money that we would be losing. So that's why I think it's okay to make this small change, and to the benefit of some seniors who, only need one pass. Eileen?
It's a clarifying question. So you have the individual and the couple, and that's just standard people, right?
Correct.
And then you have the senior one, and that was just couples?
60 and over, and it only, yes, regardless of if you're an individual or a couple,
Okay.
all you have is that one option.
All right, and so the difference is 84, right? Because you had 148 registrations, which served 232 members? So that's 84 people that bought a pass, that bought a couple's pass.
That is correct, yeah,
Okay.
yes. As that would read, yes.
All right, so, you can say you'd probably be about the same amount of people, call it 90.
Right.
You'd get that from them. Okay, so you're adding, I'm just clarifying, you're adding a senior couple. You have the senior couple, you're adding the senior individual to that?
Correct.
The intention.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Feel free to ask Alicia for help.
All right, I make a motion that we accept the recommendations for pricing for 2020 beach passes with the adjustment of the individual senior rate, couple senior rate
In town.
in town. So it's the individual rate of $10 and the couple rate of $15, and the non-resident individual rate of $15 and couple of $30.
For seniors.
So what I
For
have
seniors.
in here
Okay.
is that I wrote everything out individually, what all the rates were for residents, non-residents.
Mhm.
So I have that the approval would be for the beach rates for 2020 as listed above in the minutes.
As listed.
And I can go through those.
So
if you'd like me to.
and those rates are the same as last year's?
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so just to be clear for anyone watching, the members of the commission, our family rates, the proposal right now is 2020 beach pass costs. Family rate for residents, $60, non-residents, $125.
Correct.
Individual residents, $25, non-residents, $50. Couples, residents is $40, non-residents, $75.
I had 60. Oh, no, that was 75. No, it's
We're not
correct.
going to go down that road.
Yep.
It's fine, let it ride.
Yep.
Seniors, this is where the change occurs. Seniors in town
Couple.
now have the option to buy an individual pass for $10.
Mhm.
They can also buy a couple pass for $15, as was last year.
Correct.
Non-residents will be able to buy an individual pass for $15 or a couple pass for $30.
Correct.
Okay. Parking stays the same.
Yep. And daily per person rate stays the same.
Right, so just, again, for clarity, parking rates per car, residents are 15, non-residents are 20. Per person daily rate to use the beach, residents are 4, non-residents are 5. And again, if you pay that a couple times and then decide you want a family pass, the amount you've paid, so say you come twice, That's $8. Now you want a individual pass for yourself, that $8 goes to the 25 that it would cost you, so you'd be at 17?
So that's in our policy section.
Right, so I'm just,
Yep.
for clarity's sake. So that's what we're voting on.
And then the only last thing that you did not mention is additional parking stickers can be purchased for $10 per car, because the family passes only come with the one sticker.
Okay,
And some families use multiple vehicles.
yep, all right. So, that's the motion
Okay.
Second.
that Kevin
Yes.
so eloquently
Thank you,
communicated.
Kevin.
All right, Fred seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mike, did you vote?
Yep.
Okay. All right, great.
For the policies, do you want me to read them, what I have written on here?
Sure.
Yeah?
Were there there's other policies that we're voting on?
Well, just if you're gonna talk about the rates and policies, you should have them all out there.
Okay, yep.
All right, so the 2020, well, these were policies in the past. So daily use rates, parking per person fees can be used towards the purchase of an annual pass at any time. You just mentioned that. A 20% discount for veterans, military, first responders, and their families. That is another policy. Season pass includes one parking sticker and one membership card for each member in your household over 3 years old. Any person visiting Long Lake Beach between Memorial Day and Labor Day is required to have their membership card and, if parking, the sticker. There are no dogs on the sand or in the water at any time. That's pursuant the Littleton Town bylaw that all dogs must be on a leash. And owners must pick up their dog feces that are dropped on the premises. Additionally, dogs must be dogs must be on a designated walking path or paved surface at all times while passing through the park. Enforcement is conducted by the Littleton Boxborough Animal Control, both physically in person and digitally verified through security cameras. And then last, which is most important, and I think this gets overlooked a lot, that the Long Lake Beach Park is only open to the public from dawn until dusk. So I know that we have a lot of visitors that go there after dusk, so I just want to be very clear about that time frame.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that, or do we just?
Yeah, you should.
Okay, all right, so I'll entertain a motion to vote on those policies, unless anyone has any changes they'd like to make. Okay,
Okay, I'll move that we accept the policies as read by Alicia.
Second it?
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
All right, so in your meeting packet, the last thing is, this is your signage that you guys voted on 2 years ago. Just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to review it, and if you want to make any changes while we have time to print new signage or do anything. These were printed when we had the old logo and stuff, not that we're going to do anything at that point, but if we do ever decide to revise these, there's certain things that need to be done, but.
Where do these go, on the, like, the Snapchat?
So the one that is landscape with welcome at the top, and all the pictures is on the side of the Long Lake bathhouse, and the sign that is portrait is the one that hangs on the back of both lifeguard stands.
So why don't we allow snorkels?
Allow snorkels because it is one of the leading causes of child drownings, because people assume that they're snorkeling when they're actually floating unconscious on top of the water.
Is that a standard rule around like?
Yes.
Very standard rule around waterfronts.
Are these signs posted on 8x11 paper?
No,
Oh,
they're
they're
posted
huge.
on, I think this particular
Just wanna
sign
make sure.
is like 4 foot by 6 foot,
Yeah.
and this sign is, I believe, 2
The whole
foot by
back.
3 foot. It's the entire back
Back
of the
of
lifeguard
the beach,
stand.
or lifeguard.
And when we get the couple sections of fencing, we're gonna have at least one more of these made up to put on the entryway.
Okay. Is They look good to me. Do you want to vote on these as well?
You don't have to. If
These are
there's
already good.
changes,
I just
they're
wanted to know
already,
if you wanted
yeah.
to make changes.
No, yeah, if anyone wants changes, we can discuss. I think they look fine.
And then just to direct your attention so we can put an end to the beach conversation, because I know we have other things to go on to. This previous week, based on some of the feedback that we had received from residents and concerns and certain things, I reached out to the Massachusetts Commission on Disabilities. There is a letter in here from Jakira Rogers. She came out, she walked with myself, Alicia, Diane Crory. We went through the whole Long Lake Beach property. We went through the different facilities as they relate to Title II and the Massachusetts ADA compliance. And this is an assessment of the things that we have done. And we specifically addressed concerns that we had and concerns that were brought up to the board while we had here. So just a couple things to point out that Jakira had put in here was that, under the Title II Act, public entities must assure that people with disabilities are not excluded from program services or activities because of the facilities are inaccessible. So I'm going to paraphrase just a couple of these things.
Yeah. So I think it would be important for those that are watching tonight, this will be added into the minutes for next meeting, for the next month. But I think it would be beneficial to read the whole thing.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's, takes a little bit more time, but I think it would be beneficial for everyone to hear that.
Sure thing. This letter is addressed to myself, since I was the one who was in communication with her. This letter is being sent to you to follow up on the site visit from November 6, 2019 of Long Lake Beach, located at 20 Town Road, Littleton, Massachusetts, 01460. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the town's Title II obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, along with discussion of various perspectives that residents have recently brought to your attention. Under Title II of the ADA, public entities must ensure that people with disabilities are not excluded from programs, services, or activities because facilities are inaccessible. If a program, service, or activity is offered to the public, people with disabilities have the right to participate and benefit. People with disabilities must have comparable access to programs and services. While providing non-slip roll-up beach mat, in my opinion, the town is meeting their Title II obligation. Providing these mats ensures improvement, access for all, whether visitors are persons among mobility devices or using strollers for young children. A key goal in providing these mats is inclusion, allowing families to enjoy the beach together, which it appears to directly align with the town's obligations to provide programmatic access under Title II of the ADA. Based on our discussion, it is my understanding that a resident has requested that the beach mats be extended and placed on top of the brick pathway that leads to Lakeshore Drive that the residents deem to be non-ADA compliant. While the slope at the top of the walkway where it meets the sand exceeds 5%, all other aspects meet the ADA design standards, and placing the beach mats on top of the brick walkway will not reduce this slope. The town may want to consider remedies to rectify the current slope of the brick walkway where the brick meets the mats. It will need to be considered to create a compliant slope in one area. I also understand that a resident has requested that the mat be placed between the brick walkway closest to on-street parking and the playground. So to reference where we're speaking about, this was from the brick walkway and go behind the playground as it was. I also understand that the resident has requested that the mat be placed in between the brick walkway closest to on-street parking and the playground. As discussed, this area is not intended to be a pedestrian route and compliance does not appear to be appropriate. The area that the resident is requesting to be accessible is a drainage ditch with an apparent slope and flooding concerns. That area is not intended for people to traverse, so it does not seem appropriate for this area to become an additional accessible route for persons with disabilities. Additionally, high contrast beach mats are provided to allow persons with limited or low vision to easily identify and differentiate the surfaces that can be used to traverse over sand. The town has done a great job creating access for persons with disabilities. The impact of these mats has had on the community is extremely beneficial for all. I also enjoyed seeing the town's beach chair that can traverse over the beach mats and even go in the water. Littleton has done a great job improving access at this beach for all users. So that is from the Massachusetts Office on Disabilities. aside from this, we did have her look at a couple things in the bathhouse, as well as just mentioned to her that we would potentially like to see guidance in the future at some of our other park projects, just to make sure that we're doing these things preemptively rather than after the fact, so.
Okay. So one of the things that I've heard from two people, I guess, is the color, and it's not attractive, not aesthetically pleasing, but sounds to me based on this assessment that it kind of has to be that color or another equally less aesthetic color to benefit those with vision issues.
Correct.
Okay.
When you look at, when they do the painting for handicap spaces, often they do use that same exact blue color. So if you go down to Long Lake and you look at the signage that shows that these are handicap spaces, it is the same exact blue.
Yeah, I didn't connect those dots, actually. Makes sense.
The other piece that we are out of compliance with is we need to provide signage in front of our handicap spots, not just paint it on the pavement. So in front of the parking spaces, we'll have to buy some additional signs that are at the appropriate height, as well as the one spot, there was a standardized measurement that we had to get for vans, which we had
We
to
figured that
designate
out, yeah.
one spot as a van spot on the sign, while the other one could just be a regular handicap spot.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Do you have a question?
Not yet.
Okay, so moving on. We are now on to the discussion of swapping parcel A for parcel B at the Cooper property.
I did have questions around policies of the lake.
Okay,
Because they haven't seemed to be written, but I just want to clarify that we're still doing them. People that are using the playground can use the playground without using the lake, right?
yep,
So people can go down there with their kids. People can walk through the lake, right?
yeah,
Okay. And children's photos will not be used on it. So we can assume that security footage is secure, and the footage of kids, if there are pictures, the security will be posted everywhere.
correct. Security cameras are used for security.
So, are you referencing the fact that we used a photo to find somebody who is being destructive last year?
I'm referencing people putting up pictures of a minor without their parents being present. Yes. On a public domain.
Well, I would say if you're being destructive to town property, putting it up on social media probably wasn't the best course of action, but there is a reason why we have those security cameras there, and it was,
I
you know,
understand
that those reasons were brought to the forefront this summer when we had destructive activity happening on the beach.
I
So we were able to
understand-
find who that was and have a discussion with them, and it hasn't happened since, so that for,
I
you know,
understand
so-
that the appropriate, it would seem like the appropriate response for that would be to contact the police. Because if there's been destruction of property, they're the people who should be involved. That, they are the officials that do that.
Okay. I agree with you, thank you. All right, moving on. Discussion of Cooper property, swapping parcel A for parcel B. I'll let Alicia take this.
Yeah. So one of the tasks that I had last time we met was to actually go out and verify the square footage of each of the parcels. Because I think we were under the understanding, we felt like parcel A was a little bit smaller. So I did go out and measure the parcels with highway staff. And we did so none of this is like an actual survey, anything. So it's a really rough estimate. So we came up with the approximate numbers that are close to the official numbers that were listed on the plan. So that meets, you know, the required statement of what they said, you know, each of the parcels would be. As far as going further into the discussion, I know the Agricultural Commission was definitely in favor of this swap, if that's something that we chose to do. However, the development owner, Matt Field, I feel was not interested in this happening, so just to have like a full open disclosure discussion about it. So, yeah, it's an interesting prospect. I think, you know, if it's something that we did decide we wanted to move forward and switch the parcels, we might not have the support of the Board of Selectmen, possibly, if that's something that we wanted to move forward to do, just so the board is aware. So at this point in time, like I said, this is a discussion. Is this something that, you know, we're interested in looking at? The issue that comes about of why we would want to do this switch is even though parcel B is smaller, it would allow us to have the proper size field as well as a parking lot. Whereas parcel A is bigger, it's more of an awkward shape that doesn't really allow for us to have that full-size field as well as a well-planned-out parking lot. It would kind of be like spots here, spots there. It would be, you know, not as I would like to see something being designed, which would be thoughtfully, you know, for the safety of, you know, all the kids. I don't like the idea of just having parking spots all over the place, you know, just so we can. So that's kind of what brought up this, having a discussion about if that's something that we wanted to, you know, work with the Agricultural Commission to see if we could swap those two parcels, because it was decided at town meeting that parcel A would be active recreation and parcel B would be agricultural.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I missed, why did you feel that we would not have the support of the Board of Selectmen? I heard Matt Fields, you know, but.
Just in conversation, so when we first went out to have a discussion, there was, it was supposed to just be like a group of 3 people, and it turned into this like giant party. So there were some representatives there that said that that was something they just didn't like that idea. They weren't really supportive of it.
Okay, so was this a separate time that I went?
No, that was when you were there. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
It was
yeah.
just, Chuck was there, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did they say why they weren't supportive?
So I've talked to Chuck about it. His feeling, and he did indicate that he's not alone on the board in his feelings. Take that with a grain of salt. I haven't talked to the other selectmen about it. I trust him. But his basic mentality is that was the agreement that they reached with the fields, that we would have, well, not we, but parcel A would be active recreation, parcel B would be agricultural. That was the agreement that they came to. It was written into the HCA. The HCA was approved by the town. And to now go back on that is not something that they would be willing to entertain. On top of that, I think the developer's main issues are that with parcel B, there's houses that abut it right up along the long stretch off of Great Road. And they were, you know, they bought their house with the indication that that was zoned, or I don't know if zone's the right word, but it was agricultural. And to now switch and make that into a field is not, I don't know, not good for businesses. It's not the right word, but it's not.
Good faith.
Yeah, good faith, thank you. So that's, I think, not to put words in the developer's mouth, but I
Right.
think that's what Chuck had, what Selectman DeCoste had indicated was their feeling through him, which he agreed with.
So if we're talking about good faith, you know, and what we agreed to, my understanding, one of the reasons why we're pursuing a swap was because what originally we had for space, okay, was encroached upon.
They would disagree with that.
And that's why I went out to verify those numbers, and like I just said, that when we went out, they are verified that they meet the, I mean, it's not a survey by any means, but the rough numbers that we did approximately, you know, meet what they said on their plans, so, yeah. I think when we're looking at the plot, it's really easy to get thrown off by that section of trees that's like an apple orchard, and it makes it look like it's smaller, but there is more land there than then you see.
But correct me if I'm wrong as well. I thought, wasn't there an original plan that showed that there was more than adequate space for a field? I mean, at one point, they were talking about 2 fields even. But, my understanding is there was way more, and now I'm hearing that there isn't. So
Well, I would say
there's
that
there's-
perhaps those feelings were, or that was communicated off the cuff, that, without actually knowing the amount of space we have. I mean, I never heard anyone saying we would put 2 fields in there. I know in speaking with Chuck, his feeling all along was that we could put a small lacrosse field in there, that one that U9, U11 uses, a much smaller field. I know, we've kind of started talking about putting a full-size soccer field on there, and that's where we kind of started saying that there's not enough room for that, which,
Yeah.
clearly there isn't with, parking as well. So I can't speak to where those conversations, who had those conversations, or, where they came from,
Well,
but.
I saw a design that actually showed at least a full, and with parking. There was a design. I wish I still had it. Maybe I can
Do you remember
try
where you
to
saw that?
dig it up.
Because I don't remember that.
Yeah, no.
I do remember someone
Do you?
saying that there could be 2, there's so
Yeah.
much space there could be 2 fields.
Taking the septic system into consideration, having it over, but there's no way.
I mean,
If you look at that
you
septic
can't
system,
use that.
there's no way. I mean, but, yeah, I did see,
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we're not fitting 2 fields on there, we're not fitting 1 soccer field on there. So,
Full size.
full size, right. But you could do, I mean, you could do peewee soccer, if you put a couple fields there, probably going, perpendicular from the road. Although I don't, with netting, I guess you could do that, but,
I'd like to try to figure out where we can find those plans, because I know they were out there. So,
maybe they're out there, but it's, I mean, the reality is, it's not big enough for it. So,
I
if
know,
you have,
but you're talking about good faith,
But
And what I'm
that's,
saying is,
but the
That's
town
why I-
agreed to it with the developers. So if someone drew a picture with a field on it, it wasn't in the
no,
HCA,
it
and
was-
it's not.
It was similar to, there was.
No, there were a number of proposals, but what happened was, once they started getting the sloping and topography and everything else, they had to rework the footprint of those, and that's why these were part of the agreement. It wasn't such that, well, we need more land, but there was definitely some.
So you're saying this was the,
Jan?
Just for clarification, because I'm not well versed in what's A and what's B, are you talking about the property that's on Great Road at Cooper Farm Road?
Yes.
And so you.
So the access road splits 2 fields. As you look at the development, parcel A is on the right,
closer to Donald's.
closer to Donald's. Parcel B would be on your left,
So they're
adjacent
both,
to the other.
so are they both basically on Great Road?
Yes, they both
Correct.
are right on Great Road.
All right.
B's where his house is, A's on the other side.
And there's like C,
A
D.
sort of is an
They're in the back.
a very weak, like a comma shape.
So they're both on Great Road? All right,
Correct,
got
yep.
it.
the one I had.
So I guess to kind of move the conversation, I guess we could go this alone, I suppose. We'd have to bring it before town meeting.
Right.
And we would need, I would assume, 2/3 vote
Yep.
to get it. But did you measure parcel B?
Yes.
And is that big enough for what?
Yeah, so when we did, when we first met, that was one of the questions that Maren had of me was, what do you expect to kind of have out there? And those are plans that I brought, again, all rough estimates, none of that stuff. It's not been surveyed, so I don't ever want to put like a, seal of approval on that. But when we did the basic fit of everything, we were able to fit a full-size soccer field on parcel B with parking as well. Whereas the shape to parcel A does not really allow it to have that full-size soccer field and appropriate amount of parking. We could smash it in there, but then you have issues with actually getting, an effective amount of parking that's going to be needed for.
Is there a way that we could get, a full-size soccer field is what, 120? 120 yards by 75, 80.
Sure.
Is there a way that we could actually, so I see a number here that says 350. You know, so I'm trying to,
That's feet.
I'm trying to, well, right. So it's 360 by, let's say,
So I mean, I guess for the purpose of this discussion, I guess we don't really need to know if we can wedge a field in with parking. If we want to proceed, then we can proceed and we can go down that, we can do this homework. You know, I'm of the feeling that we risk spending a lot of political capital on this that we may not want to do. I don't think, you know, I think we're going to be hit, you know, I think we're going to have to go up against the Board of Selectmen. And we're well within our right to do that if we so choose, but they've made this agreement with the developers. Town meeting has approved it. So, you know, we just saw, you know, residents upset that, you know, the town had voted in a bylaw, and this isn't a bylaw, but, you know, the town voted on something, and then, you know, in the very near future, people we're looking to, you know, go against what town meeting had decided, and that's essentially what we'd be doing. So my personal feeling is I don't think that's wise for us to do that. But I'm one of four tonight, so.
Well, I think in Mike's argument, you know, if you've been at town meeting, can we stand up there and make a compelling enough argument that we should swap these parcels with the opposition being either ambivalent, which I forget who they are, the agriculture people are, or against us, which the selectmen will be, so it's.
And the residents of that.
Right.
Right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you never know what's gonna happen, though. I mean, somebody might go, you know what, my kids are old enough, I'll have the park right there, I won't even have to go outside, so that could go both ways.
Another option that we could always consider too is, you know, going back to what I said last time as far as being responsible with whatever monies we spend coming up. If it's a U9 or whatever field that fits there, right? Let's say, for round numbers, we'll call it 3/4 of the size, it's 3/4 of the cost of a full-size field. So what benefit does that give youth sports and everybody else to say, oh, we have this other space for you to play, but not everybody can be able to utilize it due to its size? So does it make more sense that rather having a conversation about swapping a parcel that would upset people, do we try to find a parcel that we can genuinely swap, leave this parcel as open space, and find another parcel somewhere else in the town that we can trade for that's going to support our needs?
I mean, sure,
yeah.
that's something we can
Always a
explore. The other option is that we keep parcel A and we don't turn it into a field.
Yep.
One of the things I'm gonna propose for capital is, you know, a dog park. You know, I think that, you know, I don't think, you know, and I think you spoke to it last meeting that said, you know, we can go for money for a dog park and not necessarily know where we're gonna put it. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. I don't think we're gonna get the money if we approach it that way, but we could say, we have this parcel, we have parcel X and parcel, you know, Z or whatever, 3 potential places to put it. I think we stand a much better chance of getting the money. I think this could be one potential location. I think it's a good location.
Well, I think Delaney, what we originally discussed is more viable. But to me, you know, with the uncertainty we have with corporate fields, and the issue that we've had with fields, right now we're lucky that the schools are allowing us to play on their fields. That could change, you know, based on overuse. I think a priority for me, at least a priority for me, is coming up with another field, an all-purpose
So
field.
there's, and I was thinking about this today, like if we develop this into a field, first we would need the capital to do it. But then there's, you know, our highway department's already stretched thin, so there's, you know, there's upkeep, there's added maintenance costs, there's, you know, potential added personnel. You know, whether or not we could even sustain adding another field to what they do all summer long is, you know, a discussion we would need to have with them as well.
Mhm.
You know, so I'm not, you know, certainly one of our jobs is to make sure we have adequate field space, and, you know, we can certainly use some more, but I think in the financial situation we're in right now, I can't see the town adding another person in the summertime to maintain these fields And, you know, by all accounts, from what we've heard, you know, time and time again, highway has nowhere near the amount of people they have to maintain what we have currently.
So to be very clear, a few weeks ago, Chris Stoddard and I sat down with Cheryl, the new finance director, and we talked about that. And that will be something that is talked about in the upcoming budgeting season.
That's good, I'm glad they'll talk about it.
I know. I hear you.
I'll be there, we'll talk about it. I can pretty much tell you how it's gonna go, though. But, who knows, we'll see.
I mean, we've got new town administrator, we've got a new finance director, so, you know, give them a chance to work their
Yep.
magic and we'll see what happens.
That's fair.
Yep.
So I guess we should figure out what we wanna do.
You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. I mean, this is listed as a discussion, simply.
Right, but I'd like to,
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to gauge, I would say Mike wants to push forward and,
To me, you know, I mean, I don't want to jump into to another meeting item, but I mean, it is germane. You know, I have, in my priority, I have field space. Again, you know, what I'm hearing, maybe you guys are hearing otherwise, I'm hearing that Cooper could be a prime spot for, you know, where they're,
I checked into that because I left here fuming about that, and I checked into it, and I was told under no circumstances that being taken.
really.
Yeah. I mean, there would be an uproar
Yeah.
if I mean,
It's actually, you know, technically still owned by,
I understand that, but
and they're now, you know,
I was told there's no plans to take that and use it for
Kerper, you mean?
Kerper and use it for town sewage in any way. You know, the reality is they're looking at a property down the road here that's gonna completely switch the plans from what they had originally intended anyway, so. And if I'm a betting man, I would say that's probably where it's gonna go. So, I mean, it's still a valuable capital target, but, you know, I personally am not worried about Kerper being used for the town sewer. And if it is, I hope everyone in the community backs us up and raises hell.
Oh,
So, Ken, how do you feel?
With my hands.
So
Do I have to stay any longer now?
Try the veal. I'll be here all the week. I mean, I don't think it's worthwhile. I mean, I sort of agree with Mike. I remember lots of discussions about there being a full soccer field here, and it's going to alleviate, you know, some of the field space needs, and, you know, that was a few years ago. But I also don't think it's worth the fight. I think, like, if the Board of Selectmen are going to push back, I bet these residents are going to push back. I think we can use it for maybe something else, some other passive sort of open space. So I don't think, I'm not in favor of trying to switch parcel A and parcel B.
Okay. Anything else? All right, good discussion. Moving on.
Great job.
Director's report.
Thanks, guys.
Do you have something?
Can I ask something?
Sure.
I'm actually gonna jet. But at the last meeting, I asked about the sign that was taken down, the Littleton residents only per order of the
Yes.
selectmen. Have you guys been able to find out yet if that order was ever rescinded by the selectmen?
I have not.
Okay, can we find out?
Cindy was here. Maybe she took that and maybe she's looking into it.
I know Diane had been doing some research on it for me, and we've gone pretty far back, or she had gone pretty far back, and it hadn't been rescinded. So it's still a selectman order until they rescind it, if we don't have a detail of that ever being rescinded.
Okay, I mean,
So it'd be something we have, that, you know, the selectmen should vote on that.
yeah, I would take that up with the selectmen. Yes,
Is
Jen?
there a record it was ever actually established?
Well,
I
it was
mean,
paid
could-
per order.
It's a great
of
question.
So the
selectmen.
sign says that, but how do we even know that it was ever an actual order of selectmen? Somebody could have just.
Yeah,
Right,
I don't think,
that
I mean, I would
and-
venture to guess it's so far back, we may not have records of the
Exactly.
order or the rescinding of
Exactly.
the order, so I mean, it's,
And that and much more recently, and I don't even know if you would have park commission minutes, but at some point when that was transferred to the park commission, there could have been something on that side that would have rescinded that as well.
I was at the Historical Society and I saw something about the park, like things being transferred over in the 70s, but I didn't see anything about anything being rescinded from the Littleton independent articles I saw there.
So what's your concern about?
Well, it should,
an
it
individual?
should, well, if it's a selectman's order, like if it's up there because the selectman had ordered it at one point, and if it's never been rescinded, it should be rescinded.
but I mean, the park is under our purview. So I don't know what jurisdiction the selectmen actually have over it. Right? I mean, we set the policies for the park.
Sure, but it should still be, because otherwise, if you do that, then a selectman order doesn't mean anything. If they don't vote to rescind it, then.
Well, in a place in town where they control, it would hold weight. I mean, they don't, we control the policy of the parks.
It's part procedure. I like procedure.
Okay, well, I would tell you to ask the selectmen.
Oh,
Okay. All right, director's report.
Yeah. So we had fall town meeting. Article 5 was approved and our budget is updated. So that's going to go into effect. I know Cheryl is working on it currently to update some of the changes that we've done in the line items. We're kind of consolidating some of the account lines. We have a lot of lines. All right, so that means that we also transferred the 20,000 to go forward with the statistically valid survey. The bids are due this Friday, so we'll have a full update on the process at the December meeting to talk about where we're at with everything. Right. I'm trying to go along with this guy too. All right, check. All right. So,
Can I ask, just so I have my calendar correct, when was the budget hearing originally supposed to be held?
yes, good question. So they originally had said, if you look in the minutes from last month, I believe it said it was like December 14th.
So they moved it from December 14th to February 1st?
That is correct.
Thought they wanted to have it earlier.
I don't know. So at this point in time, everybody has their budgets in. They were required to be in by October 31st. The only space where we have a little bit of leeway is with capital, which is due this Friday, which is why it's imperative we get to that discussion and make some decisions so I can start on those documents and get them in ASAP. But yes, the full budget process, as I understand it, Cheryl sent out an email today. So it looks like all the other departments will present their budgets to FinCom sometime in January. And then on that date, February 1st, which was the typical budget Saturday, it's only going to be the top 4 budgets. So that's the school department, FinCom, police, and fire. So those will be the only 4 that will be presenting that day. So I do not know when we are scheduled in January at the FinCom meeting, but I will let you know that as soon as I do.
Okay.
So that's kind of the update with the budget process. Let's see, what else do we have? So design with Fay Park, I'm gonna skip that one. I've been working with Green to try to get a horizontal design done for a parking lot replacing a swing set. So that is, they should have had it in, they don't. They've pulled in a specialist to ask some questions about park-specific questions. So as soon as I get that, again, I will send those plans out to you all so you can take a look at it and we can discuss that again in December.
Getting back to the design for Fay Park, how many parking spots would that be for?
So a guesstimation would be, we probably could fit somewhere between, I think it was 24 to 36, depending on how we aligned the parking spots. But that's part of doing this design process, is that they will actually figure out how many spots that we need to have.
Where would you put those? Where are you?
So in the back spot, or the back part of the park, there are some trees, and a lot of the trees in the inside are actually, a lot of the brush has been removed, so if you get a chance to go back there and take a look, it's back behind the gazebo. There's actually a good amount of space to be able to put
How
something
far
back
back does
there.
it go?
I mean, the Neff property abuts it right there, so it's not too terribly far. But again, when I get you the proposed design, you'll see what I'm talking
I
about.
mean, one of the things, looking over at the capital request, one of the questions I have is, if we revisit.
We're not there yet, Mike.
Oh, I know, but I mean, I think it's, okay,
You know what I mean? I don't want to skip ahead.
yep.
Yeah, okay. So hold that thought, write
Yep.
it down, don't lose it. All right, so we've got that. All right, holiday helpers, the numbers have changed. Today was the last day to get in the applications, so I have a good stack on my desk that I need to go through. But as I wrote the report, we had 16 families and 28 kids that are currently enrolled in programs. So I still do have some applications that I need to process. I think there's some others that are still out there that need to turn in the application. So if folks need to do that, please get those applications in immediately. I will work with families, if they need it. All right, so sad news. John Kasanjian, who was our recreation and sports coordinator, sadly had to resign his position. So his official last day will be November 15th, which is this Friday. He is a wonderful guy, has done amazing work for us, and he will be very, very much missed. But I'm sure we'll still see his face around. So we wish him the best on his new position, and I know that he'll do a great job. So that being said, we will have to go through the process of creating a preliminary screening committee. That's typically what we do. Since John put in his letter already, I've been able to process the vacancy paperwork that we have to do, so it's gone through the town administrator's office. So HR has been able to post that position.
Do you know if, you mentioned here that Katie Judge, the team program leader, is the interim.
Yep.
Do you know if she has an interest in?
I don't believe so. She, wanted to help out and do the interim position just for the fact that, she gets paid a little bit more in the meantime.
Yeah.
But Katie's finishing up her master's degree, and she's going to be working in the fall doing her capstone work as a teacher. So I think that's something that she's not necessarily going to be able to do that or commit to that. Yeah.
When was it posted?
I believe it was posted last week, so.
And do we have a set date that we want resumes by?
It should be, so the minimum that we have to have it posted is 2 weeks, but I believe the HR posted it as until filled,
Okay.
but we can verify that. And everything's already up on the website, so if folks are interested in applying, they can go to the town website and check it out there.
Okay.
So I don't think you've had to do the preliminary screening committee before.
I have not.
No, so I will walk you through the process for this. So this is something that the board does have to do. So essentially, what will happen is you choose 3 individuals So realistically, it could be myself and Tim, and then one member from the board. And those individuals will go the whole way through the process with the hiring. So if we are going to get somebody from the board, we need them to be able to commit to do all of the interviews and be there for the process. Gary Austin, I think, was always our chosen representative, though Gary's not here anymore.
From past experience, Mike, it's a lot of fun. You probably don't want to pass it up.
Sense any sarcasm at all. Just a question, what if,
Yeah.
what if Fred or Mike or Sean weren't, or Kevin weren't able to commit? Would we be able to, could we call on a Gary who's experienced in it and?
So you could, in past, we
Member of the
had,
public, really.
yeah, like when we were hiring Tim's position, we had the assistant town administrator, Anthony Insaldi at the time. He helped with those interviews. And I do believe, no, Anthony wasn't there?
Ann.
Oh, it was Ann.
Anthony and I got hired together.
Okay, so Anthony was there for when we did the recreation coordinator. I knew I'd worked with him.
Anthony helped hire John.
So there are other individuals from town departments that usually will help out in these
Okay.
situations, so,
All right, we'll figure it out.
yep. So we do have to at least create that committee tonight, so that's something that, you Mike can do.
Okay.
And there is a statement that I need you to read as well, because everything has to be held in executive session. Hold up here for you.
Do the interviews need to be held during normal business hours?
They don't necessarily have to, but because it is something that is being processed as part of this board, that's where we have to do the request for it to be an executive session. Simply for the fact that, having all of that information out in the public could deter
Yeah,
individuals from
That makes sense.
applying.
But we would just set that, we would set it as as an agenda, that we were going into executive session.
Well, that's what, if you read the statement tonight, then we're good to go.
Okay.
So I can give you that and you can read it.
I'm just concerned about my own availability. If it's, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
I know. So what you can do is, create this preliminary screening committee saying that, Tim and myself are on it, if you would like both of us to be on it. And then that third person can be a to be determined. That's okay too.
Okay.
Is that what you want to do?
Oh, I thought you were gonna finish.
The
with
other
your-
option that you
Work.
have, just to put all of them on the table, is Kevin Hunt is a town employee, and he also sat on this board, so that could be
Sure.
something that he could potentially have free time or time to be made available during normal business hours to assist.
I would want to definitely reach out to everybody and just
I'm just
verify.
putting it out there that he's
Yeah.
another person we could ask.
Absolutely,
Possibly.
with experience.
Do I have the statement?
If I could just
It's
ask a
on
question,
here.
because it's sort of blurry to me. I seem to remember being on the screening committees, and we reviewed the resumes, but it wasn't in a meeting format. We'd get the resumes, we'd review them, then we'd meet and discuss who we were gonna pass on to the hiring committee, which was a little different. And then you'd have the hiring, then we did the hiring committee, like when we hired Kathy, it was Steve and myself, another board member, one other person. We met, it wasn't a quorum of the assessor's office, so we did all the interviews that way
Yeah.
during business hours, but it wasn't considered.
So I think the process has changed.
Okay.
So the
That's what I was
preliminary,
asking.
the preliminary screening committee goes through the whole process. So essentially what will happen is the applications will go to the HR department. They'll go through and verify,
Right.
if there's like a cover letter and a resume are part of the process that are required. So that's something that, if somebody doesn't put in a cover letter or resume, that can be thrown in the out pile because they, didn't follow the instructions. So those type of things. So they go through the HR department for processing, and then we will get, the group will get a list of all of the applicants that have met the criteria. And that's where individually we'll go through and we will rank them individually. And then we come back together as a group and decide that who we're going to offer interviews to. And then that process kind of starts all over again, where we bring them in individually, we rate those people, and then when we're completed with all of the interviews, that's where we come back together, make that assessment, and, you know, have our top choices for whom we would like to invite to come, you know, take that position. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I would like to propose that the preliminary screening committee conduct the screening process in executive session, because having the candidate selection discussion in open session will be detrimental to the public body's ability to attract qualified applicants for the position of recreation and sports coordinator. So, that can't be a motion, because I read it.
It's more of just a statement.
Okay, that's my
That has to
statement,
be-
and I'm sticking
yep.
to it.
Okay. Sorry, it's a little awkward.
No, it's- As I finished, I know I can't read motions, so,
No.
okay,
So, yes.
covered.
But if you do, the board should make the decision to vote on creating that
All right, so
preliminary screening committee.
I definitely feel that Alicia and Tim should be on this. I would like to be on it as well. I do definitely want at least one more commissioner on it as well. I don't know, I suppose ask for volunteers.
I can do it. As long as I have a week's notice, I can fit people in during the day.
You sure?
Yeah.
And you guys want to fight Fred for it?
No.
No? All right, so,
We do it in Bermuda, though.
Yes.
You
um,
paying?
so I'll entertain a motion of the, for the preliminary screening committee to be composed of Alicia, Tim, Fred, and myself. It's gotta be one of you two.
I'll let you do it. Make the motion.
Well, we have to make, I make a motion to have the screening committee, Alicia, Tim,
Yeah?
Fred, Mike.
Yes.
You have to
Second.
have another second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For clarity, that was Mike Peru. All right. Discussion on 5-year capital plan. So,
Thank you.
good night, Janet. So as I mentioned before, I think there's enough interest out there for a dog park. I think, based on what Tim had mentioned previously about the grants that are out there, I think, if we could get that done for minimal cost to the town, I think that would be phenomenal. There's actually a Facebook page out there that is, I don't know the actual name of it, but it's, basically Citizens in Favor of a Littleton Dog Park or something of that nature. I got in touch with the administrator who, come to find out I know, had no idea who ran it before, so it's it's pretty funny. I was like, oh, okay then. So, there is substantial interest out there. So that's one of the things that I would like to target, and at least, if we get rebuffed this year, maybe we can, take the year, look for grants, come back next year with, a grant in hand, or, I'm not exactly sure how that process works, but that's something that I would like to see us ask for. I think we do need to come with parcels in mind where we would put this. The parcel off of Delaney Drive is one that we, could potentially look into.
Russell Street.
Yeah.
Russell
Just
Street,
so
yeah,
that- yeah.
Russell Street. It's abuts Delaney Drive. I do have concerns about site work there, and looks like it's significantly downhill, so I don't,
I walked the whole property 2 days ago.
yeah.
It's a little over 6 acres. It's mostly meadow. Traversing it was not very difficult at all.
But I mean, just getting off the street. You get off the street and it looks like it goes.
It does, but I drove down there with my truck.
Okay.
So I think the two largest costs, just so that you're aware, because I went down there with the intention of looking at that as a dog park, is fencing and parking.
Which is gonna be a cost no matter where we put it.
Agreed, I'm just saying, there especially, our parking costs are gonna run us a little higher. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleared.
Well,
when you
yeah,
get
I mean, we don't need to flush out the location, but I think we should have, mention, and it's up for debate, obviously, but, perhaps that spot, perhaps Cooper if we can't get a field there. I don't know if, I don't think behind the track is actually feasible, but that's another parcel of land, but I would say if we go in with those two places for potential locations with, maybe the parcel off Russell is, more ideal than, taking a potential field off our slate if we can get one in there.
Did we decide that Russell Street, we couldn't put a field there? I know it'd be a little bit more, it's not ideal because of the road noise, but
Sorry, say that one more time?
putting a field,
So we did talk about that in previous meetings, and I think the reality of being able to do sound buffers for the children and families that would be there is going to be cost prohibitive,
you'd have to put some buffers there.
for sure.
Yeah.
There are kind of some odd spots, if you look on the GIS on that as well, that when I went down there were not wet, but we also hadn't had, significant rain. But they are delineated with a green stripe that denotes wetlands. So based off of those, just from kind of looking at it, I think that, fitting a full-size field, with those easements that you would have to have around that stuff and working with CONSCOM, I'm not saying that we couldn't achieve it, but it might be a little tricky.
One of the things I like about that area, just having it developed from a recreation area, is there's this open space behind it. I think it's conservation owned.
Hartwell?
Hartwell, yeah. There's a great hiking in. You can actually mountain bike back there, trail system. So,
Is that Long Lake Park?
hmm?
No.
Long Lake?
No.
Goes to Hartwell and then it
It's an
actually
old ski,
goes over to
there's actually
Hartwell
an
Ave.
old ski area there, tow rope, I think. Really old.
Really?
Mm. Yeah.
No, you're wrong.
Okay.
There's already
I'll look
parking,
it
there,
up.
there's parking off
It's
of,
like behind Delaney Drive.
yeah.
Yeah.
That goes across to
It's a-
Hartwell Ave.
There's a little brook, you
Okay.
go into the
Oh,
woods.
that is all, yeah, that's
that's-
actually
conservation.
Light and Water, I believe owns some of that, and then,
Well, there's access, there is parking up Hartwell,
okay.
a small little parking spot.
All right,
Anyways,
let's stay
Yeah.
focused.
Yeah.
So capital projects.
well,
Does anyone have any, what else are we proposing here?
Again, so there were a couple, for me, well, obviously, the major equipment and repairs, that's gotta be number one.
Yeah. Now, did that come down from, I thought we asked for
It did.
50,000.
So I wanted to clarify, in the past, we had done 50,000, and included in that were utility items. So at the beach, we were paying for trash removal, electricity, water, Wi-Fi, the security cameras, all of those kind of things. So the new finance director has asked me to break out the utilities, that shouldn't be considered as part of that maintenance line. So we've created a line in our budget specifically for utilities moving forward. And that cost would be around $15,000 a year. So we did reduce the major equipment requests to $40,000.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two for me is still the field, developing a field. I like the concept of the dog park, but right now, I have a dog, and there's so much great conservation land around here. I know a dog park serves more than that, but again, I know where this town was a few years ago, Seems to me that there's still a need for field space.
Yep.
Number three, I had the extension of the parking at 300 King. I kind of saw that as parking that could serve 300 King Street as well as Fay Park.
Why did we abandon that plan last year?
Because of the potential financial restrictions of building the new library on the overall town budget. And we were limited by we have money available in CPC.
Right, we didn't want to waste it.
Correct. So we want to make sure, because that CPC, or the Community Preservation Act budget, there, at this point in time, Mike, you can speak to this probably more than I can, but I don't believe there's any additional funding going into that for the foreseen future. I don't know if they've come
It's
up
less. I don't know the numbers for this year.
Well, we don't need
It's less.
CPC funding to,
Well, the point that I'm making with that is, once it's used, it's done.
Right.
It's not gonna replenish. So we have to be very careful on what project we choose to use. 'Cause I
right, but
think
we could,
there's,
we could
like,
target that as a capital item
Yeah.
without CPC funding, correct?
Correct.
That's
So
correct.
in the reality of what ends up happening, at least for our process, is we ask for things in capital. We usually don't get them. And then we have to go to CPC and ask for funds there. That's kind of how we processed it in the past.
So the reason why I was wanting to revisit this is because we're talking about parking at Fay Park, and it seems to me that if we extend the parking that we currently have, it serves a purpose for both Fay and King Street. And that's why that made sense to me,
So,
Yeah, it makes sense to add parking spaces to both parks, and then when we have big events, we have a lot more parking.
agreed.
Right, but if you had to pick one, I'm trying to,
So let me just,
That's fine.
as far as this, just the other piece to this,
Mhm.
if you increase parking at 300 King and we didn't at Fay Park, assuming that we're gonna do that, when we run events at Fay Park right now, there's no parking. So we are running,
Yeah, I know.
for instance, it was $1,800 for all the police details for people to cross the street to come to Fay Park for Oktoberfest.
But I mean,
So
you're not
it's
gonna,
gonna
you're
be there
not,
anyway.
you're not gonna avoid that by putting 30 parking spaces at the
But
park.
if you put them at 300 King and not at Fay Park, then you're having people just park there. You're always gonna have that, as opposed to if you have the spots at Fay Park and you might not need to, depending on the size of what you
If
have
it's a
going.
smaller event.
with what you're running, I mean, I see not just Fay Park, I see people parking at the town hall.
Mhm.
They get creative where they park.
But I mean, they can both be on our capital list, we just will prioritize.
Right,
them.
that's,
So,
exactly,
I'm in favor of both of them being on the list.
yeah. It's just, I put a slightly different priority. You know, I thought you served two purposes by extending the parking at 300 King Street. And then I put the Fay Park renovation, as the next, but, I don't know, the swing set replacement and pavilion, I don't know how that factors in, what the need is. I mean, if you feel like that's a critical item, like the swing set needs to be.
That most definitely is. I mean, it's an ancient swing set. So regardless of whether we update that or not, I'm having Highway rip that out. So it'll be gone come springtime. But I think for the type of experience that we're trying to provide at these events, and Fay Park does seem to be like the area that we use for these events, that makes it the most conducive for these open events. I think that it does lend itself to needing that attention, so that we can get it to the place that we really want it to be. So, the thoughts that we're thinking about with adding the parking, we would also be working on trying to create the accessibility piece to the swing sets, which currently aren't there. I think it was a couple Thursdays, maybe not this summer, but the summer previous. We had a couple people in the electronic wheelchairs, and I was just like,
That's not gonna work.
amazed that they made it
Oh, they
like
did?
down that hill and like they were hanging out at Third Thursday and it was awesome to have them there, but the reality is that we really should have a more accessible park. They
Right,
were
right,
being
right.
very brave.
Yeah.
So that's something that, I do really want us to work on. And if we have the ability to create this pavilion, we have the possibility, depending on the size that we make this, we have a possible platform to do possibly an ice skating rink. To be able to have some of these, like fire and ice, a lot of times that event hasn't gone because it's weather dependent. And now if you have a roof, you've got, at least an ability to have like a good space that, would be conductive for an event like that.
The pavilion has a roof.
It would.
It's a gazebo.
It's easy.
You're looking
No.
at ripping out the gazebo and putting in a
No, we would
pavilion.
not rip out the gazebo. We would be adding a pavilion in as
Where
well.
the swing set, like where would it go?
So that's part of the design
Okay.
process that we haven't gotten that
Sure.
quote back on what that would look like. So I am trying to work on creating a design so that you can see that.
Okay. Is that all on your list, Mike?
Which one?
Huh? Is that all that you have on your list?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably reorder it, with the question of the parking lot. If that was a separate priority or line item, I do agree with you. I think we need more parking, period.
Okay.
It's just, there's only some, to your other point, there's only so much capital, right?
And just to be clear, the last meeting that we had, it was asked that we put our suggestions department-wise through. So what you see on this list, the priority and what is on the list are projects that we felt were important and that we would encourage discussions on and looking at those things in the future.
Okay. Kevin, you have anything anything you want to add to this list?
No, I mean, I would say major equipment should be on there, Fay Park renovation, dog park. I'm not a big fan of extending the parking at 300 King Street, but I know it's needed. I'd rather see sidewalks so people can actually walk to events at Fay Park like myself, instead of trying to take our lives in our own hands, going down Tahadawan Road in Fay or
Yeah.
Foster Street there. But, because I would walk to Fay Park more if there were sidewalks.
Right.
But, so again, major equipment, Fay Park renovation, dog park, and, if we had to, I guess, fourth on my priority list would be King Street parking.
Okay. And Cooper doesn't hit your top four? Just asking for clarity.
It would be fifth.
Okay.
I
All right.
think we need fields,
No, I think I'm on the same page as you. with your
but
priorities.
I think we gotta be sort of fiscally responsible and look for lower priced items that we can get churned out quicker
Yep.
at this point.
Fred?
Yeah, I'm with Kevin and yourself. I mean, the design for Cooper, spending money on the design process when you have no idea when you're ever going to see funding to actually do the construction, makes more sense to tackle more manageable items first.
Yeah.
I guess I have to ask the question, if not now, when, there was already a major uproar, and, I think the longer we waited, especially with the library coming down, it's just not gonna
Yeah, but I
happen.
mean, that's the reason why.
It's done.
Yeah, I mean,
Now
it's,
you.
there's no chance we would get $1 million for a field right now. We can ask, we can put it on the list, but I'm of the opinion that that's
I think it's,
5 if there.
yeah, I think it's something we keep on the list and we keep it in people's minds, but I don't think we
Yeah,
let it
no,
go.
I mean, we should present it
gotta-
as, we have this field targeted for active recreation. Eventually, we're gonna need money for it, but, we're certainly aware of the town's finances and, I wouldn't wanna put that as second on our priority list
Well, let's-
at the detriment of something else that we could actually accomplish.
Well, I also know we've got close to 600 in CPC funds right now, so, and I can see what it's,
But again, the amount of funding that has gotten that account to where it's at is drying up. And as we know right now, there isn't really a incoming source.
There's always gonna be, I mean, unless the town drops out of the program.
Yeah, aren't we mandated to
We're
put like
doing, what we've
3%?
lost are the blended funds and the matching funds.
But that's
gonna
big.
go.
That
That is, but
big.
there's still
It's-
money coming in.
But you're looking at like $100,000 versus like 20. That's a big difference.
Is it like 3% of the total budget, like town budget? What's the
It's
percentage?
1%.
1% of the
Yeah.
total town budget goes in.
For the matching, yeah.
All right,
Now, matching
so-
is all dependent upon how many municipalities are involved in.
Correct,
A lot of them, Littleton was one of the first ones, that's my understanding.
yeah.
People realize, wow, this is a great deal.
Sure,
You know, they,
So rather than,
I can make an action item to find out a little bit more.
what about this as a compromise to Mike? And something that I brought up to Alicia the other day. At some point, we're still gonna need to design a field. And I think one thing that the town did was they designed a very viable field, an alumni field. And whoever the designer of that was, to go back and see what the cost would be to back off everything but just the field. And then also the same field with turf, both ways, so that we have a cost moving forward, understanding that depending on the property, there's gonna be grade work and site work and all that kind of stuff. But to design this and just have everything ready kind of in hand with the assumption that we'll have to have a survey done, add in site costs. But at that point, if and when that becomes available, we at least have that in our back pocket and we're not starting from scratch.
Well, a couple things is, I mean, the turf field would be not regulation size for any of the fields that you would typically use turf for.
Why would it not?
It would be, we
Just
can't fit
lacrosse.
a soccer field in there, we
Yeah.
can't fit a full-size lacrosse field.
And I think that it's, like I
And you
said,
gotta, and you gotta put parking in there.
you're talking about Cooper.
Yeah,
And I'm saying that, like I said before, I think it's foolish for us to think about or even consider that if we're gonna spend money to put in a field that's 3/4 of the size anywhere. I think the forethinking, knowing that we have this time, needs to be, how do we switch parcels, or how do we get land that fits a full-size field on it? Because it's not like we have
I
to
mean,
build on Cooper.
sure, but, so what are you asking, you're asking for a picture of a turf field? That we could, so we could put it somewhere in town? I
Well,
don't-
yeah, you're gonna have to design a full-size field at some point.
Right, but I just don't understand, like, what, we would be asking for money to have a firm design a field in a location to be determined?
Or you find a location to be determined, and then you put that on the capital plan for the design at that location.
I know, but we're like, in a couple months, we need to be presenting this now.
I understand that.
I'm confused, I don't know, I'm not quite, and I guess the second point I was gonna make is that I don't think the town will be using that design firm in the near future based on some of the issues that have come up with alumni.
Are we absolutely certain that a full size will not fit there? What did you get for dimensions on May? Do you remember?
It's not necessarily just the field, it's
Oh, I
field
know.
and parking.
And
Correct.
parking,
There, yeah, we could get a field on there, but that's pretty much about it. So then that leaves the situation of, what do people do? Do they park on the side of the roads in the development? That's not gonna go over well. Or, like, I think somebody was suggesting that, you go along the side of it and you can like kind of get some in here and some over there. And it's just like, we have to think about the flow of the parking, and it does need to be designed so that it is safe and efficient, not just cramming everything that you possibly can in there. I don't want to design something like that, because that's just asking for issues.
I'm just trying, I've got this right here, and I just don't see how it matches to anything, as far as, I can't see a field, I can't see, I don't even see,
So I'm going to forward the emails that I sent, because I had drawings of that last meeting. So I will send it to you again, you can have those and review it.
okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's try to get a consensus here, or at
Yes,
least
please.
a partial. I think, from what I'm hearing, everyone except Mike is prioritizing as major equipment and repairs as 1, Bay Park renovations 2, was Dog Park 3? Or was
Yeah.
Dog Park 3? And then 4, a distant 4th, maybe, I don't know, I shouldn't editorialize. 4 would be extension of parking at 300 King. And then, I will, for this, a distant 5th would be field design and creation of Cooper Farm Parcel A. All right, Fred and Kevin, you agree with that?
I mean, I wouldn't say a distant. I mean, I want
Right.
to keep the Cooper Farm or the field development sort of, I would say in line maybe with
Okay, so,
extension of
all
King
right, so
Street.
take my,
That was what I was
Caveat
trying
on
to say.
that.
I think Kevin just summed it up. Just call it field development, like,
Yeah.
don't pigeonhole it into Coopers.
It
I
doesn't
think
have
the
to
point
be.
that I was trying to get across.
In-
yeah, and
too
that's, I guess
specific.
that's fine. My
In-
rebuttal would be, they're not gonna give us any money for it.
In the past, so this is one thing that you guys have to keep in mind with capital. Capital is how you explain your strategic plan with these projects. So something like the bathhouse, right? That had been on there for like 10 years. And we kept putting it on there year after year after year, simply so you can say, well, this has been on the capital for 10 years. When are we gonna get to this? We need to get to this.
Yeah, okay.
So you have to use that. So that's why, when you asked us to put the list of things, the projects that we felt needed to be on the horizon for the next, 10 to 15 years, that's why we have all of these items on here. So
that's fair.
I think that even if we're not planning on doing them, what I'm asking you to prioritize tonight, I guess, would be the projects that we want to move forward with for the request of the 21 fiscal year. But all of these projects, if you review them and if you feel that there's merit to them, should go on the list because we're saying we're gonna do them in future years.
Wouldn't it make sense, though, to actually prioritize based on, what you would like to have versus, are we
Well-
starting to make the,
So I would like you to prioritize for this upcoming year for 21, which it sounds like you've just done. You have the 5 projects that you would like to put forward for this year for capital request. Okay? So moving forward, you can prioritize the rest of these, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. You could have 1 million of them on there if you wanted to. But we do need to figure out what that strategic plan is. And this is something that I'm encouraging us to talk about this moving forward so that we can develop this, because we really haven't used capital the way that we should be using capital. And I do, from the understanding that I have from the finance director and our town administrator, is that they do want to start using capital in the appropriate way. Even, we might not have money because, of the potential with the library being inside the levy, that would really not allow us to do projects for a very long time. But, the reality is we still have to plan in the hopes that there will be.
So the other piece is I'm hoping that, it's unfortunate that we're in capital season right now, because when we get the statistically valid survey back, partnered with the other documents that we had, just as an aside, like, has everybody had the opportunity to review the open space and recreation plan and read it and do all of that, as well as the recreation part of the master plan?
No,
Because,
I've perused most of the master plan.
and the only
I
reason
haven't read it word for word.
The only reason I'm asking that is I think that's pertinent of all of us to do, just for the sheer fact of, it gives us our roadmap. So it's not the assumption of, should we build Cooper next, or should we do this, or should we do that? It's what are the people of Littleton asking us to do, and how do we design a 5 and a 10-year plan that gets us to those goals? Because we do have these documents that are instructing us on what to do. While some of them are dated, the hope is that the statistically valid survey will take that information that we already have, and as long as we continually do them over the course of the next couple of years, will give us the roadmap of exactly what we should be investing based off of what the residents of Littleton want.
Okay.
So if all we do tonight is create your top requests for 21, I will be happy.
Okay, so I think we've done that. I think Mike may disagree, but I think we have 3 here in agreement. If you want, Mike, if you want to try to sway us at all, feel free. But
I do believe the master plan actually called out for additional field creation, if I remember, that was
yeah, I
so,
believe that you're right.
I mean, I still feel like what this is you put out your wish list. Some of it will probably be more if you're already, what's the one I'm looking for, not improvising, if you're already capitulating, before you even start asking, then they won't know, And
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I think you asked for it, but again, maybe you feel that, the field is not a high priority for,
I think part of the pitch that, I hope I can make the meeting where we pitch this to the selectmen. But if I can't, or one of you guys can, I think if we can't, Alicia, but when we pitch these ideas, we tell them, there are things on here like Cooper Farm that are higher on the town's priority list, but as a commission, we feel that there's more attainable things on the list, therefore we've put them higher up. We still recognize that Cooper Field is something that the town has, or not Cooper Field, a field,
Yeah.
another field is something that is in the master plan that the town has said they want. It's clearly a need, but based on, the state of the town at this point, we are going for more attainable projects. I think that would be the pitch. Not to say that it's any less important, but, I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I can't reconcile putting something on the top of the list when there's no chance we're gonna get it.
I'm not so, I don't feel that way.
Okay.
And maybe a dog park is attainable, because it costs, although 200 to me is.
Well, I'm banking on grants with that.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good grants out there for dog parks.
I would have to see what that's all about. I mean, I have a dog.
I have a dog too. I wouldn't be able to take him to the dog park though. He would want to kill every other dog there.
Oh, really?
And mine can't go on conservation land because he more often runs down Goldsmith Street, down the double yellow line. So if he's not on a leash, it's pointless. I think, Mike, the issue I have with the Cooper Field is,
Again, I want to say field. just
well,
field.
you say field, but then you've got to take into account that where. And we have Fay Park, and we have land that we could probably fit a dog park, but to be honest, what this town needs to do is take some of the massive amounts of land that they've accumulated and clear it and do something like they've done in Northborough. No, I'm just saying, I mean, that's the ultimate solution instead of this hodgepodge, because I'll tell you what, if I'm a parent of a kid that's gonna play on a half-size field at Cooper, chances are I've got a kid that's playing somewhere else at or around the same time. And how do I get them to practice? And how do I see both their games or attend things? And it's kind of a solution,
I've
but
said
it's.
this so many times.
No,
sorry.
okay, I mean, I've been dealing
preaching to
with
the
this.
choir on this.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been dealing with this. I'm sure none of you had kids that played soccer where the high school was when it was the King Street Fields.
Nope.
Those were the original soccer fields back there, and they took those to build a high school. So I've been dealing with this since then, because my wife's really old. And, No, that's.
Somebody email her the link to this meeting.
Oh, my
Believe
goodness.
me. But no, I mean, the thing is, Mike, your field thing is good, but to put that number out there and search for money, and then say, where's it gonna go? Well, we don't really have a solution for it. That's the only reason I would put it down further on the list, because I don't think what we've got on here is a real solution. It's just sort of a stopgap measure, and the town's getting.
That's why I say field, I'd rather have somebody, I mean, I'd like to be an advocate for it as a commission, and then let somebody else help us. I mean, I could see where.
I mean, the real
I take-
solution to what the Morgan property is.
Well, it's interesting.
What we should be targeting, but
I've
Well,
been
I
through
saw-
those deeds, though, there's.
So I saw that as,
that's, I've heard that.
so I saw as number 2, the community center. And I take Mag to be Morgan?
No,
Nope.
What?
multi-generational.
Multi-age,
Thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Large.
Marcia.
okay.
I can't even say it now.
Multi-age and generational, what is it?
Multi-age generational building, man.
But again, I can't even conceptualize asking for that in my head. Like, that's,
Right.
unless we figure out a way to pay for it.
It's not
Minimum would be
us, it's
$20 million
going and
ask.
being an advocate
Right.
again for it, being a central committee and being an advocate for it. To
Yeah, I
me,
mean,
it's a
we
town
can-
thing,
so
and I agree with Fred.
can
In
do
an ideal world, we would have what he's talking about.
We don't need to ask for money to advocate for these things there.
Correct.
If we want to advocate for a community center, we can do it without asking the town, pretending to ask for money for it, when we know, we got the library that's approved. We have a senior center that is $3 million targeted already. We have a town hall that is going to need to be renovated, or some amount of millions of dollars is going to be put into that. We're not,
Well, that's why I'm
I
not
guess
even
that's
talking
where,
about-
so my brain stops right there.
Well,
Like,
I
can't
draw
even-
the line at the community center. I was just,
So
I said
let me put this out here. In all of the things that we are building, where is the revenue?
There's no revenue.
There
Correct.
has to be revenue.
So, if you look at something like a community center, and you have the ability to, and I'm just being theoretical here, just having an open discussion, let's say that you have the ability to put in a pool, right? That's something where now you can rent that out to other places, you gain revenue. You have something where, let's say that you have indoor fields. You can rent that space, you now have revenue. So those are the components that have to be thought about in this process. Do you create something that's phased out so that you're creating revenue that's going to fund the next part of a phase, so that you get to a place where you are finally dealing with the space needs, you're finally dealing with the field needs. So that's where we have to be smarter and start thinking about that process and what that looks like. How can our department be the start of that process? How can we help? Because we have the ability to do that. We're one of the only departments that has the ability to generate revenue to move forward, to be able to do projects like this.
Yeah, so I agree with that. The obstacle for me is that, and it's an accomplishable obstacle. I don't know if you guys have it in your wheelhouse, but we would need to have a fully developed business plan
Yeah.
before we were to get a dime for that.
So that's where, we look at it, like, from the point that I made, why reinvent the wheel? There are hundreds of thousands of recreation departments in this country who do a much better job at looking at those things and have already developed these plans and have already done this. And to the point that I made about Alumni Field, is it necessarily the right answer for us? No. But we can take things that have already been designed, already been conceptualized, fit it into our population base and what we're looking for, similar sizes and things like that. I can tell you right now that there's a building that is almost in final completion of stage 3 in Arizona. Out the door, here's the real number, $31.2 million in a town of 15,000, which conceptually, by the time this is 25 years down the road and this might happen here, that number is going to be bigger. But the reality of the situation is there's plans out there, and that's just like Alicia said, the goal setting. And it doesn't all have to be at once. It's what do we do? What is the need first? Does a youth sports need a field? Great. Maybe after that, we find a way to put a bubble over the field so that then it becomes a 365-day, usable space.
Yep.
There's all these things that we can look at and take notes from other departments, from other towns, from other cities, in order to attain these goals based on what everybody's asking of us.
Then send those plans to us. Send them to us so we can
Well,
look at
that's
them.
the point of us being in the National Parks and Recreation Association and the Massachusetts Parks and Recreation Association. We have those discussions, we have them regionally, we have them nationally, and, you know, Tim and I have both, I've completed director school, Tim's working on it, and you create those network of communications with all of those folks that we're able to have those conversations and ask of those things. And generally, people are really, you know, wanting to share that information to help everybody out.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's great, but, you know, you have four guys sitting up here right now that can't conceptualize a community center as far as making it feasible for our community. So you guys have it number 2 on your priority list. If you wanted it to stay there, then you should be pitching us, you should be sending us this information and saying, here's how we could make it work. Read this, come to the meeting, come to the meeting after reading this, and let's discuss this plan, how we can make it part of our community. We, you know, I can't sit there and say, yes, I agree, 2 community centers, number 2 on my priority list. I just can't, I don't know what the business plan is. I don't know how we could even make that feasible in our town.
I would have felt more strongly about this a year ago when the library came up. I've been to, Canada has it right in a lot of spots. They have these, and this, you know, the size of, you know, Banff is one, you know, the size of what Littleton is. They have community center, library. The one I went to had a rock climbing center, had a pool,
All together.
all together,
Yeah, it's a
all
community
underneath
center.
one
Yeah.
building.
Well, and that's, you know, it's,
Senior center, it
Everything.
had
it's,
it all.
it's unfortunate, and on one hand it is, and on the other hand it isn't. We got, you know, almost, I think, like 40% off of the library building. You know, we were being driven by this grant. We had deadlines where when the space needs study comes back from town hall and tells us everything we need to do, we've already hired an OPM for the building. You know, the idea was to put all that information together and figure out the best possible move forward for the town, including the library. Like the study was with or without the library. But now we have a building that's in and of itself, and we're also gonna have this other project. So it's, you know, there were ideas, you know, I heard, you know, people talking about a grand town hall with, you know, there were a couple different ideas, you know, maybe moving it down to, you know, past Acton Toyota, or raising the current town hall and, you know, completely redoing it. You know, all inclusive and having all those things, community center, library, but, you know, I think we can still do it, but it's just gonna be harder because we have 9 million after the grants are come back, 9 million sunk into one building, one particular department, and, you know, we still have these needs elsewhere. So, you know, if we're gonna do a community center, then it's, you know, in our lifetimes, then it's gonna have to be done by us. I think that's the reality.
And I think.
Well-
And there's also the other aspect of it is politically trying to get residents to agree to us making money off of them. And that's, you know, we've seen it at the beach, you know, and, you know, we're not doing that, and, you know, but, you know, if we come back next year with a $10,000 profit, they're going to expect that to go back into the beach, which, you know, I will fully support, but, you know, we've heard from them. They don't want us making money that way.
So I don't think that that's necessarily a fair statement. We've heard from less than 1%.
Yeah.
And,
Well, no, that's true. It's a valid point. I'm just,
you know, when I talk to
Reading the
people
tea
like
leaves.
Dan Sheffrin and some of the other sports people, and I've shared some of the ideas that I have open on my computer and stuff like that, the interest is there. And the opportunity for us to get a base and move the needle on something like this is there.
On the community center, are we talking about that?
We're talking about all of the things that we have on this sheet in blue and white right now. It's just where does this board want to focus? Which direction do you want us to go in? How much information do you want us to give you? But the other piece, and, you know, to be very candid, is just like, you know, in that it's knowing that we're going to do all of this research and do everything and, you know, put forth the best opportunity possible, and to an extent make sure that the 1% isn't ruining all of that hard work.
No,
Let
that's
me, so
fair.
in the master plan and the survey that's going out, will we get feedback about is there a question about a community center? Like, is there something in there? And I think we have to wait until we get some feedback from the community. If there's a demand for a community center from this survey, sure, then I think that's a road we start traveling. But I don't know, like, I just from talking to other
Yeah.
folks, I
So
don't
you're
know
doing
that
one of
there's a
these
demand.
in your department, right?
Yes, I know.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yes. Trust me, I know.
So I just want to be clear, because you were kind of going two different places with that. So the statistically valid survey is the 1 point, so yes, that will be covered in that, that when we, go through that process. But the 2017, I think it's 17, the town master plan, it's high up on the list of having a community, and like, read it, it says specifically, the multi-age generational community center. It's in there, it's in the town master plan.
I don't doubt that, but I think that was pushed by the need for a council on aid, like, that was.
Senior center.
A senior center, sorry, like, I think that's what pushed that
So one
most
thing,
of the time,
but one thing
or
with
most of
that,
those numbers.
one thing with that is ourselves and Human Services upstairs serve the population in very similar and very different ways. And we both are Human Services to an extent, and there's people that we underserve, which are specifically for us in recreation, the active senior population in our town, because they're not covered by us or covered by Elder and Human Services upstairs, because they don't want to sit there and be static in a room. The other piece to that is, yes, it's senior center or this or that or everything else. And, one of my goals is to throw that thinking out the window. I really would like to see us partner and work together. And I've said it in this meeting, and I've said it to other people, looking at everything that we build, and it's always like, oh, well, we just built a fire station, or we just built this, or we just built this. So if a senior center comes on board, then, okay, then do we ask for a community center? But the reality of that situation is, why would you build another municipal building that, if you're going to build a senior center that has bathrooms, that has all the amenities and everything else, why create another building that has the same amenities when you can partner the two together? And I've used this before, where it's go to town hall, show up there between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and the parking lot starts to get packed. By 9 o'clock, there's not a space in there, and people are parking up on the grass. And then by 12 or 1 o'clock, as soon as the senior diner and the lunch is over, it's a ghost town. And, fitting into our demographic, that's when 1:30, 1:45 is when we go gangbusters until 6 or 7 o'clock. And then, that's when we do most of our adult programming. So the reality for us to work with and start asking them, hey, guys, if we want to be responsible, if we want to put something forth that's going to be the best thing and use some of these tools that we're not using right now, the idea of having two separate buildings, it's not a good one, especially in a town of this size.
I agree.
Not
Do you
feasibly
have these conversations with Liz Treccia?
Yes.
I sent Liz an email that I can forward you on. I'll forward it to you tomorrow. I asked her to have a conversation with her board about a walk that we're having on Thursday.
Okay, well, and
And
So
that
yes,
was,
we
maybe we should
do
have
often have communication with them.
some sort of
on working
a
together.
joint meeting. And because, the reality is, no one knows when they're gonna move with that cash they have, could be tomorrow.
Yep.
So we should be, if we wanna get on board with that, we should be getting involved now.
Are you talking about, instead of 3 buildings, trying to coalesce to one, or are you talking?
One.
Okay.
and we do it in
To Tim's
phases that
point,
we can afford.
the traffic flow is
Yeah, but-
different times.
Well, here's the thing, is how does that fit into that one building? You're talking about going slope side, right, where,
No, we're
Okay.
not talking about that. We're talking
Good.
about
The library's set in
designing a
stone,
building
that's,
for a future thing that we can put on a capital plan that we can all work towards mutual goal of
separate of the library then?
separate of that.
Okay.
That would be all encompassing for all of the needs based off of what we hear from the population of Littleton. And one of the things that we are going to do is we are going on a walk on Thursday at 10 a.m. to go prospect the possibility of renting some space up at the Point for a community center, for a trial run to see what the cost to rent space would be and things like that, with the idea of, and this was the email that I sent to Liz and I forwarded you to Mike, I invited her along with the idea of possibly utilizing that space in whenever they could possibly use it to forge this relationship, forge this partnership, and show how it can be a mutually beneficial thing for us to share space. While also figuring out how much things are actually gonna cost. What do utilities cost? What is air conditioning? What is heat? What does it cost to do X,
Well,
Y,
I
and Z?
can tell you for libraries, 14 million. It's gonna be at least that.
I already told you, it's $31 million to build the one that I.
Right.
I would say,
I'm just gonna, I wanna throw a couple things out, excuse me, Mike.
No, no.
Because we've gotten so off topic and Alicia's, I'm making her crazy. Perhaps we ought to have a meeting about the direction we expect everything to go, because this topic's off of this. But the thing you need to remember is, I'm looking at the levy projections over the next few years. We're only gonna raise $2 million more this coming year in the levy. And the
Half of that will go to the schools. 'cause they
well,
always
regardless
get
of where
another
it's
million every year.
going, it's only 2 million more. So we talk about building these big buildings, where's that money gonna come from?
Right.
And we've got no commercial growth coming online really next year, which is gonna skew even more towards the residential class, and then they're gonna build that hotel. That money gets eaten up, and we have all the other infrastructure. The problem is, we're trying to rebuild the infrastructure of the town that sat dormant for 20-some years since I moved here, and, there's gonna be other capital projects. Kevin's sidewalks are gonna cost millions. So, but I mean, I think it would behoove
Straight to my
us
door.
to have somebody that knows the financial end of where the town's going and the impact in terms of having to do a debt exclusion or an override, come talk to us in a general sense, so that we can sort of have a more realistic opinion or thought process on where we're gonna go with our capital plan for the future.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
To your point about the hotel, we also need to look at opportunities like, a hotel room tax coming towards recreation opportunities and funding things like that. If we get a marijuana retail shop, something having, a kickback from that coming into, the rec department to help fund things like the generation of field creation and things like, these are all opportunities that we as a board have, you guys, that's a political ask that we can put forward that's gonna help us achieve these goals and not be an ask because we can put that money away and start, thinking about some of these things from a different picture. And to be perfectly clear, I'm not talking about building one of these buildings tomorrow. And I don't necessarily even think that any of us will be around. We're just forging we're paving the way for it to be a possibility and a reality one day.
And there's a few other things to keep in mind with this as well. So, again, because we are Parks and Recreation, there are grants available to us, both state and nationally, that we can apply for that there are other departments that could not. And they could go specifically towards building, a building center like this. And so that's something to keep in mind, that we do have grant opportunities that not everyone would have access to.
I think we have
Okay.
to
So-
look at those first and find out, how realistic it is.
I think you have your top 5 from us.
So just want to verify with you all. So number 1, major equipment. Number 2, Fay Park renovation. Number 3, dog park. Number 4, extension of parking at 300 King. And number 5, a new field design and creation,
Correct.
not location-based,
Correct.
just,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, so
All
it's
right.
getting late. So that's good for tonight.
It's not my 5, but.
Yep, nope, that's
We don't
noted.
have to agree.
That's noted. Tim, trunk or treat, you have 10 seconds.
Trunk or treat was great. Thank you for everybody, Ed Franzen and Jim especially, for taking photos. Holiday Helpers 5K, December 8th, sign up to run. Another awesome event. Last year we raised over $11,800. And Alicia, how many families? What was our number?
Last year, for Holiday Helpers, there were 44 kids. I can't remember how many.
So it's a great cause here in Littleton. They're all Littleton-based families. Please sign up for the race. It's going to be another awesome event. And thank you to the Point for being partners in that.
Got a question, I sent a link to photos I took at Truck.
Yeah, I saw, yeah, yeah.
So you got it?
Yeah, I
Did you
got
get it?
Yep.
Did you get it, Fred?
I did not
No.
get it, but
I don't know if you sent it to us,
think-
maybe just.
I don't know, I sent it to everyone.
I think the firewall
I'm a
caught you.
Kushner.
All
So,
right. While Mike's looking for that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Aye.
third, fourth.
check your spam folder.